Flies are everywhere we go, literally. It's believed that flies originated in Asia, but these days, they live everywhere people live, only excluding Antarctica and maybe a couple of islands. Flies have traveled the oceans following humans, but they never go anywhere alone. In the wilderness and deserts where humans are absent, you won't find any flies. We know them well, but we all have that unanswered question about flies. Why do flies rub their limbs? Turns out, they just clean them. It's this simple. A fly has hair all over its body. The hairs on the limbs serve as detectors for flying, finding food, and doing whatever else the fly business is. They have to keep their limbs clean at all times. So, they just rub them every time they get a chance. Their limbs are sensitive, and they serve more than one purpose. Apparently, the limbs have taste receptors, so the flies can taste with their feet. They can land on their potential meal and wander around it, giving it a good taste before consuming it. Flies can't chew, so they're on an all-liquid diet and drink their food. If the food they have picked as their next meal is solid, they have a special ritual to make it edible. A fly regurgitates digestive juices on their soon-to-be food, and those juices break it into the smallest pieces that can be drunk. Also, spitting out those juices frees up space in their stomachs for new food. Quite often, flies sit on our food. They can appear harmless, but it's not exactly true. First, remember that they spill out those juices onto your food, which is already gross enough. But there's more. You have to keep in mind that flies land everywhere, and it's not always flowers, but all the gross stuff as well. And flies especially like that said gross stuff, like rotting foods, dumpsters, and even worse. So, their limbs collect all the germs and microbes from those places. When a fly lands on your food, it transfers those germs to your meal. Some of the microbes they transfer can even cause diseases like cholera and typhoid. There was even an experiment once made to demonstrate how it works. There were two bowls. One contained a red powder of some kind of spice, and the other bowl had white rice in it. Flies were let in, and they would migrate from the spice bowl to the rice bowl and back. Soon enough, rice got covered with red spice. Now, replace harmless spice with something grosser, and rice with your dinner. So you should always cover your food to make sure some fly doesn't take a walk on it and step and spit all over it. If you're eating, make sure you swat them away. But don't worry if some annoying fly manages to sit on your sandwich for a second before you kick it out. No need to throw the sandwich out. If you acted fast, then you're safe. Also, experts say that an average healthy human has a strong enough immune system to repel parasites. Even though flies are gross and annoying, bugging around and tickling you with their limbs, they do serve some good. They're responsible for pollinating flowers. They collect nectar from them, which gets stuck to their hair on their bodies, and then they pollinate the next flower when landing on it. Also, if flies didn't exist, our planet would be even dirtier. Flies recycle some of the human waste. Flies are also an important part of the ecosystem since they're food for birds, spiders, lizards, frogs, and many more. Without flies, they'd all go extinct. Apart from flies having the superpower of tasting with their feet, there are other interesting facts about them too. They can walk on both horizontal and vertical surfaces, and even upside down. They can do it because each one of a fly's feet has two pads with tiny hair. And those hairs produce a glue-like substance that allows flies to have an excellent grip. Flies have unique eyes, which have a large complex of 3,000 to 6,000 simpler eyes within each of the two compound eyes. A fly's eyes don't move, but its vision is nearly 360 degrees. They can see behind their back, so wherever you are, a fly definitely sees you, and every other danger with one or a few of their thousands of monitors. In addition to the two compound eyes, flies also have three simple eyes located on their foreheads, which serve as a compass and allow a fly to navigate. They also have an amazing reaction time. Ever wondered why it's so hard to swat a fly? Well, to a fly, we're sloths. That's because they see things in slow motion compared to us. Species have different perceptions of speed. The speed we see will be twice faster for a turtle, and it will be 4 times slower for a fly. Turn a video on at 0.25 times speed and imagine someone approaching you with this speed. Well, that's how a fly sees you. So yes, it has enough time to escape. A fly has just one set of wings. But in addition to their pair of wings, they also have so-called halters, which allow them to take off fast. Millions of years ago, halters were serving as a second pair of wings. Now they help to take off and also to balance the air. If a fly loses one of the halters, it'll start flying in circles. And if both of them go missing, it won't be able to fly anymore at all. Also, even though their wings beat up to 1,000 times per minute, they're also very slow flyers, only reaching the speed of 4.5 miles per hour. If a fly lives in an urban area with enough people and garbage around, it doesn't fly far away from the place of residence, only having a territory of a bit over 3,200 feet. Rural flies are far more explorative, and they can fly away up to 7 miles at a time. A fly doesn't live long. Its lifetime is just around 30 days, but during this time, they lay from 500 to 800 eggs each on average. But it's not 1,000 at once, it's several goes throughout their life, with 75 to 100 eggs at once. The eggs hatch within 24 hours, and it takes a week in total for an egg to turn into a grown fly, and then the cycle continues. In colder climates, this process can take twice as long. A timberfly is the biggest fly species, which lives in Central and South America. They can grow up to 3.15 inches. Also, flies have beds, or more like their favorite spot to stay and sleep. They have a comfy place, somewhere close to their source of food, and they come there to rest at night. If you ever had your house flooded with flies, here are a few tips for you to reduce their population. First, it's important to understand what they're attracted to. They're attracted to other flies, and even to the smell of flies living there. And flies have an amazing sense of smell, so if you hosted even one fly, expect to get more guests. If you have any traces of flies, like fly specks, they'll find you too. Make sure to wash your walls and surfaces. Next, flies love garbage and rotting produce. They lay eggs in rotten food and meat, so make sure to keep your food in the fridge, cover it, and keep the trash in tightly sealed containers. And of course, take out the trash regularly. Flies have a sweet tooth, or more like a sweet foot, since they taste with their feet, and they love syrup and other sugary liquids. They're also fond of soda and vinegar, so make sure to keep those stored and always wipe after yourself if you spill something. Lastly, they like to hide and live in dirty and leaky drains. They eat the bacteria from there, so always clear your drains and repair any leaks right away. Also, it'll help to seal all the cracks in your floor, ceiling, and walls if you have any. That's one of their ways to get into the house.
In 2008, NASA had an intriguing question. How do spiders construct their webs in zero gravity? Therefore, they sent 2 spiders to the International Space Station. The first spider was the main participant, while the second served as a backup in case the first one didn't survive. However, things didn't go according to plan. The backup spider managed to escape from its chamber and visited its companion, resulting in a bit of a mess. They built tangled webs that interfered with each other. As if that wasn't enough, the flies that were supposed to be food for the spiders started reproducing faster than anticipated. Their larvae escaped from their container and covered the front window of the chamber. Over time, the spiders were completely hidden behind the larvae. Although this initial experiment didn't go well, one of the researchers involved in planning the spider experiment was still curious. In 2011, she got another opportunity to repeat the same experiment. This time, she sought assistance from other researchers. They decided to send a different species of spider into space and prepared 4 spiders, 2 for the ISS and 2 for Earth, allowing for result comparison. The goal was to expose the spiders to varying gravity conditions and observe their behavior. However, another twist appeared in the story. Initially, they believed they had 4 female spiders, but it turned out that 2 of them were actually males. Determining the sex of young spiders can be tricky, but fortunately, one male had already been sent to space while the other remained on Earth, enabling valuable data collection. The second experiment proved successful. The spiders were active. They built and dismantled webs, and even without the assistance of gravity, they spun new ones. 3 cameras captured thousands of pictures, showcasing their hard work on the webs. Interestingly, it seemed that spiders created significantly more symmetrical webs in space than on Earth. The center of the webs was closer to the middle, and surprisingly, the spiders didn't always position their heads downward as they typically do on Earth. However, one significant factor made all the difference: light. When the spiders on the ISS had a source of light, they weaved asymmetrical webs, similar to those found on our home planet. Light played a crucial role in orienting the spiders in space. The chamber's lamps were attached at the top. If the lights had been positioned differently, for example on the side, it would have been challenging to observe the effect of light on the symmetry of webs in zero gravity. When the lights were turned off, the spiders rested in random orientations within their webs. Yet with the lights on, they would orient themselves away from the light source, which meant downward. Hence, in the absence of gravity, light assisted them in orientation. This discovery was unexpected, because spiders can typically build their webs in the dark and capture prey effectively, even without light. Spider's web itself is such a cool thing wherever they are. It's like these creatures have small silk production factories inside them. Within their body, a thread is stored in the form of a highly concentrated liquid. And a regular garden spider can produce up to 7 different types of silk, each having a unique combination of proteins. Each type of silk has a different purpose. For example, one type of thread makes the web elastic, which means the web absorbs the impact when insects collide with it. Another type of silk makes the thread flexible and strong, so it's more difficult to break. Some proteins found in the silk protect it from harmful bacteria and fungi, allowing the web to last longer. They also keep the silk moist so it doesn't dry out. Wow, imagine having a home where you don't have to buy anything extra to maintain it. Spider silk is lighter than cotton and incredibly thin, up to 1,000 times thinner than human hair. But it's also insanely strong. I mean, it must be, since that's what they rely on while living their everyday life. Whether they're preying on some wandering insect or trying to resist heavy rain and wind. But you wouldn't expect it to be stronger than steel, right? Of course, in reality, you don't come across steel that thin. But if you could find a piece with the same weight as spider silk, you'd see that it has similar strength when pulled or stretched. In fact, spider silk is 5 times stronger than steel of the same thickness. Spider silk is also super stretchy, able to stretch up to 4 times its original length without breaking. Plus, it remains strong even in freezing temperatures below -40 degrees F. The most common type of spider is the orb weaver. They're masters at building those webs you keep seeing in open areas. That's where they have a better chance to catch a tasty lunch. But since they choose such spots, their webs are more prone to damage. That's why these spiders have a fascinating habit. They often rebuild their entire webs every day, even if the current web seems perfectly fine. I wish I was this dedicated to maintaining my bedroom. These spiders actually do this because they want to be prepared for the evening when they patiently wait for their potential prey to get caught in their carefully set trap. At first, this might seem like a waste of time. After all, they need to invest a significant amount of protein to produce the silk that forms their webs. But even if an orb weaver spider doesn't catch its meal overnight, it usually has enough silk proteins to dismantle its old web and build a new one for the following night. As the spider removes the old web, it consumes the silk at the same time, and by doing that, recycles the proteins it contains. If you've ever observed a spider on its web, you must have noticed how attentively it responds to even the slightest vibrations. It turns out that spider silk can be finely adjusted to different sound frequencies, unlike any other material. When a spider builds its web, it doesn't just spin the silk and leave it as it is. The spider actually makes adjustments to the silk by changing how tight or loose it is and how different threads are connected. This way, it creates a web that can vibrate or make different kinds of sounds. The spider is like a musician tuning their guitar. This feather-legged lace weaver is called the garden center spider because it mostly enjoys humid greenhouse conditions. And it has a really cool way of catching insects. Instead of spinning sticky webs like other spiders, it uses electricity. It produces incredibly thin silk, almost at the nanoscale. And on its hind legs, this spider has special hairs that act like tiny combs. As the silk emerges from its body, the spider uses these hairs to comb and manipulate the silk. And here's where the magic happens. This process generates an electric charge. The threads of the silk are now crackling with electricity, so they come together to form little poofs that resemble fluffy balls of wool. These electrically charged poofs are a great way to trap innocent insects wandering around. When unsuspecting prey comes into contact with them, the electric charge causes the threads to cling to their bodies, making it almost impossible to get away. Female Darwin's bark spiders make gigantic webs that can stretch over rivers and lakes, which means they can reach over 80 feet across. It turns out such enormous webs are just a part of their genius plan to catch their prey. A super strong web that goes across the water like a bridge can capture large insects that gracefully fly above the water's surface, like dragonflies, and it's an impressive project that takes days to construct. These special lines go across the river and anchor the web firmly to each bank. There's no easy way out of this.
You're partying in the backyard with your friends. Some people are tossing a frisbee around, but it ends up behind your shed. One of your friends heads over there to fetch it, but she notices something that looks like a giant ball. When trying to get the frisbee, she sees some wasps buzzing around. Little did you know, there was a giant wasp nest right in your backyard. Your friend runs back and rushes inside your house. Everyone's confused and watches her sprint out of nowhere. Then you see a swarm of wasps invading the party. You and your friends freak out and rush inside until your living room is completely cramped up. Everyone looks outside in frustration as wasps take over your party. They land on the snacks and grilled food. They're completely covering the entire backyard. You have no choice but to send everyone home and clean up. Wasps aren't usually dangerous unless provoked, but still, it's better to avoid them at all costs. You call pest control to report the hive, and all you can do is sit and wait for them to arrive. Looks like one wasp managed to get inside the house. Everyone panics and knocks over your furniture and stuff. You open the front door to let them out. The best way to detect if a wasp nest is around is by observing their flight patterns. If you see one of them constantly flying back to a certain spot, then chances are a hive is just around the corner. Oh boy. And keep an eye out if you see more than one of these stingers. Some wasps are known to travel solo, but they also live together in colonies. Wasps have an amazing engineering instinct. They build their nests mainly out of wood fibers mixed with their saliva. They turn it into paper-like material and make hexagon-shaped constructions. They find wood pieces from trees, or if they live near humans, then from fences, windowsills, and anything of the sort. The pest control arrives wearing protective gear, looking like they're about to save the world. You sit back and watch them do things. You finally see the nest after they extracted it. And good thing it was just in your backyard. There have been reports of wasp nests inside homes of people, behind closets, inside garages, and even on the top of their windows. They're technically outside, but you wouldn't open a window for a breath of fresh air. Like most pest controllers, your rescuers took out the nest the size of a football and relocated to another, safer area in the wild. Wasps are actually nature's pest controllers. Not all insects dare to mess with them. Wasps just end up preying upon anything that comes their way. In fact, some farmers praise their work and keep them around their crops to protect them. But at least you can go back outside and throw an even better party than before. Better fire up that grill. In April 1963, a farm in a remote area had to deal with the largest known wasp nest. It weighed so much that it actually fell from the tree it was hanging on and split into two. The whole thing was around 12 feet long. That's the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, and 5 feet in diameter, as tall as a fridge. I wouldn't want to have a romantic picnic under that tree. You're going on a nice little hike in the northeastern region of Brazil, when suddenly you realize something doesn't feel right. No, it's not your stomach, so you're fine. But just the landscape. It feels off, like you're standing on something ancient. You see a group of scientists pointing at you to move. At first, you can't really understand what they're saying, but then you realize you're standing on a large termite mill. You know, those insects that love nibbling on wood so much, they build their entire lives around it? And even though termites have a colony mentality like ants and bees, they're actually related to cockroaches. Termites are mainly found in North and South America, but also have traces in Europe and Asia. You can credit that to humans for transporting them all around in ships and crates. Anything wooden they could get their hands on, or rather their jaws. So, after moving from the mill, you realize you notice many mills resembling the one you were standing on as far as the eye can see. You rush over to them to try to make sense of it, and they tell you that you're standing on an enormous complex of 200 million termite mounds. Even though many of these mills are around 10 feet tall, many of them create a beautiful scene. According to scientists, they might be up to 4,000 years old and are visible from a satellite in the sky. These mills cover the size of Great Britain. That's an equivalent of discovering 4,000 Great Pyramids of Giza if you were just a tiny termite. And although abandoned, these mills aren't active nests, but an entire network of interconnecting tunnels. Scientists are still searching for answers about this entire termite supercolony, but so far no more details could be found. They still haven't found a queen chamber, and by the size of it, it doesn't look like it'll happen anytime soon. Termites are actually resourceful creatures, but can do a lot of harm to human-made structures and even crops and plantations. Since termites have migrated with people overseas, many of them aren't accustomed to the natural environment around them. So they end up seeking shelter in anything, including houses and buildings. Termites are responsible for many property destructions and even collapsing of wooden structures. If you have a cabin in the woods with much of your furniture made of wood, you're basically setting an open buffet for these pests. But since these creatures feast on wood, aka cellulose, they can break it down into substances that are spread all around to support other plant growth in the ecosystem. You're walking around in the open savanna enjoying the nice warm sun, when, in an instant, the entire sun is blocked. And these aren't thick, dark clouds about to drop some rain on you. You look closely, and after noticing some of its weird movements, you find out it's a huge swarm of locusts, probably the biggest you've ever seen. In 2020, East Africa saw an invasion of locusts that can cover an area 3 times the size of New York City. These waves of swarms hit East Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, and the Middle East, eating away crops that fed entire populations. Scientists claim that this is the biggest locust invasion in the last 50 years. Locusts are considered to be the worst pests. Now, an individual locust doesn't seem too bad. Even 2. They look rather harmless and eat a tiny bit of vegetation. But when about 80 million of these bugs get together, well, it's not good news. With those numbers, it's no wonder the whole world stops and pays attention to them when they're on the loose. It took so much effort to control them, but in many cases, the rescue was too late. So, after seeing such a mega swarm heading your way, you seek shelter. But these creatures can cut through anything. You find a small shack to hide in, but as soon as they fly by, it's like living through a hurricane. Ah, the coast is clear. You look outside and see everything around toppled over and eaten away. All those crops completely gone. You can finally see the sun again, but the swarm is on the loose. Another insect that got famous and caused all kinds of trouble in 2020 was the Asian hornet. Scientists claim these creatures aren't aggressive towards humans unless provoked, but they can be really violent toward honeybees. The hornets can ruin entire hives in a matter of hours. Tiny honeybees can't do much to protect themselves from full-grown 2-inch monsters.
You're trembling. Drops of sweat are dripping down your face. Your frightened eyes look up, watching a big flying bug. The Asian giant hornet, the size of a thumb, is hovering above you. It's one of the most dangerous insects on the planet, and not just because its sting looks like a needle. This insect can cause a real economic crisis all over the world and lead to the mass extinction of many species of living creatures on Earth. But we can speak about it later, because now it's going to sting you. The sting of the giant hornet is one of the most dangerous and painful among insects. You're about to find out what happens to the human body after the sting pierces the skin. There's no point in running. The hornet will catch up with you anyway. It flies around you. You hear a strange crackling sound. The hornet flicks its jaws to scare you and keep you at a distance. After a couple of seconds, it attacks. The hornet stings you right in the shoulder. Oh, it doesn't care about your clothes. The stinger can pierce through a thick layer of fabric and even a beekeeper's protective clothing. You need a special suit similar to a space suit to be protected from the hornet. Unfortunately, you don't have one. In the beginning, you feel as if a red-hot needle is piercing your body. Through this needle, the hornet injects poison into your skin. The substance dilates the walls of the blood vessels around the bite, which makes your skin turn red. Your body fights the foreign substance and sends out immune cells, but the venom destroys your defense cells, causing your skin to swell. The infected blood is filtered out by your kidneys. The poison contains a substance that is toxic to this organ, but your kidneys don't bother you as much as your shoulder. The bite site is swollen and red. It's burning. The swelling can last from hours to days. It's only one hornet, but it can sting you 10 times. Just imagine what would happen if you stirred up a nest. You would have to hide in dense bushes or jump in the water to escape. And if you get stung several times, you need to go to the hospital. In any case, you are lucky that you don't have severe consequences. People with allergies should stay away from giant hornets. The sting can be catastrophic for their bodies. To avoid coming across these monsters, stay away from their nest. You can hear an alarming buzzing sound from afar. Asian giant hornets are aggressive and will sting anyone who walks past their nest. Authorities always get rid of their nests if they appear within city limits, but not only to stop them from attacking people, but also to prevent the apocalypse. And here's how it can happen. One of the Asian giant hornet's favorite things is attacking beehives. They fly far away from the nest, and when they find a hive, they mark it with a unique pheromone. The smell attracts other hornets, and even a small group of them can completely destroy the hive. About 20 hornets can wipe out about 30,000 bees. Imagine the damage that thousands of hornets could do. This is the main danger they present. By transferring pollen between flowering plants, bees help them grow, breed, and produce food. Bees pollinate plants that cows and other livestock eat. Thanks to bees, we have cotton growing. If hornets wipe out bees, there would be a worldwide shortage of cotton clothing. Simple t-shirts, jeans, and jackets would become more expensive and sooner or later disappear from the markets. Many berries and fruits may lose their rich taste and vitamin content. This could lead to a lack of vitamins, not only in animals, but also in humans. So you won't be able to put on your jeans and favorite shirt and go to a restaurant for a juicy burger. Eggplants, hot peppers, kiwis, blueberries, cranberries, and other products would disappear from the stores. Entire species of animals would stop existing along with the plants. This would lead to an even greater crisis, not only in agriculture, but also in the world economy. Imagine dominoes falling one by one. That's what it would look like. Along with this, the number of hornets would increase. There are almost no animals in the world that could control the growth of the hornet population. If people do nothing, everyone would have to wear thick protective suits to walk outside. Hornets would infiltrate homes and cars and sting people and pets. Of course, people are aware of this danger and take all possible measures to control the population of hornets. Unfortunately, bees can't protect themselves. Their sting can't harm hornets. Bees are much smaller, so they're completely defenseless. But one bee species has developed a fantastic way to resist hornets. Meet the Japanese honeybee. As soon as a giant hornet enters their hive, they instantly attack it, covering the enemy with their bodies. Once the hornet is trapped in this dense living cocoon, the bees begin to vibrate. Their shaking is so fast that they just burn the hornet. After that, the bees discard the much larger insect and go about their business. Well, the strategy is effective for one hornet, but what if many of them appear? Most likely, bees won't be able to cover all enemies. Besides, Japanese bees can't teach other bees how to fight hornets. Fortunately, humans control the giant hornet population. All hornets belong to the wasp family, and among them, the Asian hornet is not the creepiest insect. How about a wasp that can turn other living things into zombies? Spider-manipulating wasps can do that. This tiny insect lives in rainforests. It flies between trees, holding an egg most of the day, and looks for the perfect host. This host will later take care of the offspring. The wasp examines the local fauna, sniffs, avoids predators, and notices a web. The spider uses this web to catch other insects, but this time, the spider has become the prey itself. The wasp is getting closer, but doesn't sting. It just drops the egg on the spider's abdomen and flies away. It's done. There's nothing the spider can do now, since the egg is stuck to its back. The hunter probably doesn't even feel the guest. But then, the larva hatches from the egg, and the spider's life becomes a nightmare. Day after day, the wasp larva feeds on the spider. It can't get it off its back, because the baby wasp controls its mind. The larva has injected a special substance into the spider's body. The poison has a terrifying effect on the spider's brain. Now, the spider cares for the larva's life more than for its own. The spider begins to weave an unusually shaped web of stiffer silk. It makes a particular web pattern inside which the larva will be safe. Then, when the baby wasp reaches a certain level of development, it abandons the exhausted spider and clings to the web. Then, it creates a cocoon that will become its home for a while. When the time comes, the wasp emerges from the cocoon. It can fly and is now able to take care of itself. Whether it's a female or a male wasp, the insect starts looking for a mate to create offspring. Then, if it's a female, it lays an egg, grabs it, and begins flying around the jungle, looking for a new spider. There are even more inventive parasitic wasps. Meet one of them. When the female is about to lay her eggs, she starts looking for a babysitter. Aha, a ladybug. The wasp flies up to the beetle and releases a single egg through its sting. When the larva goes out of the egg, it makes its way inside its host. 20 days have passed. During this time, the larva has developed inside the ladybug, and now it's getting out. But the babysitter's job isn't done yet. The larva creates a cocoon between the ladybug's hind legs. Inside it, it will evolve into an adult wasp. But to keep the cocoon safe, the larva makes a bodyguard out of its host. If something dares to come close, the ladybug will do its best to protect the cocoon. When the wasp inside the cocoon is formed, it leaves its bodyguard. The way the wasp controls the ladybug's mind is still unknown. There are a lot of parasites besides wasps. Some of them can control animals and even humans.
Have you ever noticed how insects seem to get bigger in certain parts of the world? Take Australia and the Amazon rainforest, for example. They're notorious for having some of the largest and creepiest crawlies around. What's the deal with these hotspots of insect activity? Warmth plays a part in insect growth, but it's not the only factor at play. You won't get bugs that large out in the desert, for instance, despite the heat. The real secret lies in their access to water. In tropical and subtropical environments, there's usually plenty of moisture to go around, which means a year-round supply of delicious snacks. Speaking of snacks, that's where things get interesting. The warm, wet environment creates the perfect conditions for an all-you-can-eat insect buffet, which allows insects to grow and thrive over time. This is true for rats too. Just look at the giant rodents that live in cities, where they can feast on all kinds of garbage and scraps. For bugs, the perfect gem is usually found near the equator, in places like Central and Southern America, parts of Africa and Asia and Northern Australia. Have a look at this one. It's special not because of its large size. Humans rarely see this insect. It's a wood moth and was spotted at a school in Australia. The school is close to a rainforest. It holds a record for being the heaviest moth in the world. It had a wingspan measuring up to 9 inches. In Australia, there are about 60 species of wood moth. Yet many aren't as big as the giant wood moth. The students get to face many animals on campus, such as bush turkeys, koalas, and snakes. But according to the principal, seeing a wood moth was a brand new thing. When we start talking about insects in Australia, it's also hard not to mention spiders. They are impressively big. Again, it's all thanks to the warm climate and abundance of food sources in the Australian bushlands. Like most cold-blooded animals, spiders tend to grow bigger in warmer places. The Australian climate, especially in the northern and central parts, is hot and humid, making it the perfect environment for spiders to grow and thrive. Spiders are also sensitive to temperature, so warmer climates provide them with longer periods to grow before reproduction. Australia's vast bushlands provide more insects for spiders to prey on, making them bigger and stronger. From the crab spider to the Australian bird-eating spider and the huntsman. Although they may look scary, most of them are not dangerous to humans. Now we can take a deep, relaxing breath. So, how do Australians handle big spiders without going crazy? I mean, we are talking about a country that is home to about 10,000 species of spiders. Australians treat spiders with respect, despite the cases of spider bites. They acknowledge that these creatures are not here to scare people. They're an irreplaceable component of the ecosystem. When they face a spider at home, they call the experts if there's no one brave enough to capture the spider and take it outside. Here are some weird-looking animals from Australia. I must admit some look creepy, and some look cool. This one here is a hot pink slug. It has a striking bright pink coloration, which is believed to be an adaptation to their environment. This creature is among the rare and endangered species. You can find it only in a single place, Mount Kaputar National Park. It's near an isolated forest on an old volcano. Insects are part of everyday life in certain parts of this country. A person was mowing the lawn and a surprise was waiting for them. They discovered this 14-inch tall insect. And this person was kind enough to fill the bird bath on a hot day. Then they noticed that birds didn't go near the bath. They wondered why and checked it out. Well, hello there. Next up, we have this giant insect, and it's still alive. Why is it such a shocking thing? Because, it was declared extinct nearly a century ago. I guess it's back from the other side? It's the Lord Howe Island stick insects, aka the tree lobsters. These giant bugs, measuring about 6 inches, used to call this place their home sweet home, but black rats had other plans. These rodents invaded the island, gobbling up everything in their path, including the poor stick insects. By 1920, the bugs were officially declared extinct, but as fate would have it, they made a comeback more than 40 years later on Ball's Pyramid, a volcanic sea stack located 12 miles away. But here's the twist. The new and improved stick insects look slightly different from their ancestors, leaving scientists scratching their heads, wondering if they were the real deal. After some scientific sleuthing and DNA testing, the verdict is in. They're the same species. With less than 1% genetic difference, these plant-eating critters are ready to make a triumphant return to their homeland. We're about to take the creepy crawlies to a whole new level. In Australia, there's a centipede that'll make you want to crawl out of your skin. I must also say these animals are nocturnal too. Can you imagine waking up with one of these 6-inch long centipedes crawling across your foot? Have you ever seen an insect that looks like it came straight out of a science fiction movie? Well, let me introduce you to the Australian walking stick. If we showed you a picture of this creepy crawler, you'd probably think we had some mad Photoshop skills. But no, this stick insect is as real as they come. It's hard to believe such a bizarre-looking creature could actually exist in nature. This just goes to show how incredible and mind-boggling nature can be. Picture this. You're wandering through your garden, minding your own business, when suddenly you walk face first into a sticky web. Before you have a chance to freak out, you see the culprit, a garden orb weaver spider. These nocturnal creatures might look scary with their large, hairy bodies and red-brown to yellow markings, but luckily they're harmless to humans. In fact, having them around can be a good thing, since they help to reduce insect pests like mosquitoes. Their webs are truly a marvel of nature, strong and nearly invisible, with a large capture area for prey. And if you accidentally break their web, don't worry. They'll usually get the hint and move somewhere else. So go ahead and enjoy your garden, But watch out for those sneaky garden orb weavers. Check out this hefty Aussie critter, the burrowing cockroach. Unlike those pesky flying roaches, these fellas are wingless and not considered a nuisance. They've got a vital role to play in the ecosystem, munching on fallen leaves and recycling other organic matter. You might find them chilling out in a cozy burrow. In fact, they're the only known cockroach with a permanent subterranean abode. These crawlies are practically celebrities in Brisbane, where they're even kept as pets. Our next subject is the Hercules moth. This little thing can only be found chillin' in New Guinea and Northern Australia. Now let's talk about why the Hercules moth is so impressive. For starters, it's massive. It boasts a wingspan of 11 inches, making it the biggest moth in all of Australia. Not only that, but its wings have a surface area, making it the largest of any insect alive. Talk about impressive. When it comes to appearances, the Hercules moth is mostly golden brown and white, with see-through spots on each of its 4 wing sections. The coloring and patterns don't differ too much between males and females, but the males have longer, skinnier tails on their wings. The thing about these types of animals is that you never know where they'll fly. Will they land on your shoulder or the tree next to you? Have you ever encountered a giant insect? If yes, what did you do? Tell us your story.
It's a rainy Thursday evening, and you curl up in your armchair with a cup of hot chocolate and a new Brightside video. Suddenly, you notice a scary shadow above you. There's a monster on the wall with 100 legs and antenna on its head. You start dialing 911 and your mom at the same time. While you're on the phone, your guest moves at lightning speed. 2 seconds, and you can no longer see it. You grab a mop and hide in your closet. With your hand shaking, you open the browser and type "scary beast inside my house." You scroll before you finally find the right one: house centipede. Turns out it only has 15 pairs of legs, 2 well-developed eyes, and 2 long, sensitive antennae to pick up smells and vibrations. It carries venom in the legs, located by the head and near the mouth. And it can hold more than 1 prey in its legs, using them like a lasso. All this makes your guest an excellent hunter. Somehow, all the web pages you're looking at are telling you to leave the beast alone and be happy it's in your house. A lot of people are trying to get rid of them, but house centipedes are a natural and free pest control in your home. They'll help you get rid of bugs, flies, ants, moths, spiders, termites, and cockroaches. You, as a human, are simply not on their menu. They're active night hunters, and they don't leave webs or traps anywhere. They don't build nests in house either, and don't snack on your furniture, clothing, food, or pets. They move without making a sound and without leaving any dirty traces behind. House centipedes don't carry any diseases and in 99% of cases get out at night when you can't see them. They're always moving around looking for prey. Because they move quickly, you might not notice them at all. They would only try biting you if you attack them first. Even then, they can't bite through skin. It feels like a light bee sting. Nothing too crazy. This sounds promising, and you're almost ready to get out of your hiding spot. You scream like a girl. It's there again. Quickly, you don't need to feel comfortable sharing your home with this multi-legged creature. You grab a jar and a paper. It's running across the room. It's under the bookshelf. Wait for it to get out on the wall. You turn off the lights to make it feel more relaxed. It's still now. And so, it's done. You take it outside and hope it will still do the pest control job out there. You decide to secure the house from any other unwanted guests. So, house centipedes love moisture and like to hang out in bathrooms and basements most of all. You get downstairs and fill all the gaps in the floor and the walls. You check all the pipes in the bathroom and kitchen for leaks. Perfect. Now it's time to go outside and remove dry leaves and twigs. Centipedes love to hide in there. It's been a busy night. You decide to watch some TV. Ouch! What a monster! It's a Goliath bird eater, the largest spider in the world. And just like the house centipede, it looks way scarier than it actually is. The Goliath diet includes insects, frogs, and rodents. It lives in northern South America. Despite its huge size, it can't hurt a human with its venom, no more than a bee sting. The next guest on the show is the whale shark. Obviously not a bug. It's the largest shark and fish in the world, slightly bigger than a double-decker bus and as heavy as 5 elephants. They have 300 tiny teeth in their mouth, and they use those on plankton and the occasional fish. Whale sharks are slow swimmers and the kindest of all sharks. They even play with divers. In fact, humans are more dangerous to them than they are to humans. Despite its huge size, giant African millipede is a shy guy and would rather hide under the rocks all day. The only thing it can attack is dry leaves on the ground. This way, it plays its role for the environment. Australian thorny dragons are lizards with scary-looking spikes on their bodies. They move around the scrubs and deserts in search of ants. That's their favorite and only meal, and they can eat thousands of small ants a day. They catch them with their sticky tongues. Thorny dragons use their spikes to protect themselves against predators and won't ever attack a human. Their superpower is changing color depending on temperature. Wrinkle-faced bats live in Central and South America. They only eat fruit, and their face shape and skin helps them with it. They have terrible table manners and shove their face completely in their lunch. All the wrinkles help the fruit juices funnel directly into the mouth. Oh, what a great idea! I should try that. Aye-ayes are lemurs that live only in Madagascar. An old local superstition says meeting one of those is really bad luck. In fact, they're harmless creatures that feed on insects and larvae. They quickly tap on tree trunks to find food and take it out with their long middle fingers. Aye-ayes prefer to stay on trees and barely get down on the ground, so you're unlikely to ever bump into one anyway. If you ever visit Nepal or India and run into a crocodile with a long and narrow nose, don't panic. It's a gharial. Crocodiles are their closest relatives, but gharials are not one of them. They are their own unique species. Their weird noses are perfectly adapted to catch fish. It's their favorite food. Gharials are loving and caring parents and super shy creatures. They hide from humans and never attack them. Milk snakes look almost exactly like coral snakes, but unlike that highly venomous creature, they are completely harmless. Nature gave them those brightly colored stripes to trick prospective predators into thinking they are coral snakes. Thanks to that mimicry, they survive in different places from fields and rocks to agricultural areas and barns. Some people even keep milk snakes as pets. Yeah, but you better keep the different color patterns straight. Mata spiky turtles are super lazy. They don't even swim, but walk in slow-moving streams and swamps. They only get out of the water to lay eggs. Mata-matas don't hunt, but wait for their food to come by. When they see a fish, they stretch their neck and swallow it like a vacuum cleaner. They have to do it because their jaws can't even chew. Hey, what's the matter with you? Virginia tiger moth is as scared of you as you are of it and tries to avoid contact at all costs. Their favorite food is leaves – birch, willow, maple, walnut, cabbage, and so on. They chew on the fleshy parts and leave the leafy skeleton behind. If you really annoy them, they'll try to protect themselves. But the most serious mark they can leave behind is slight skin irritation, or some nunchuck marks if they're forced to use their martial arts. Just kidding. Vultures have sharp beaks and talons and a reputation as a bad guy. In fact, they won't hurt a single living being. Their culinary preference is animal carcasses. Yum! This way, they make the world a cleaner and healthier place, kind of like animal control. Unlike most birds that have 360-degree vision, vultures only focus on what's going on beneath them with their 60-degree vision. Giant isopods are close relatives of shrimps and crabs living deep under the sea. They have alien-like bodies with dozens of sharp claws on the belly and 4 sets of jaws to hunt. But they don't always have food around them. That's why they slow down their metabolism to save energy and constantly live in semi-hibernation. When they're in danger, giant isopods curl up into a little ball and hide so that no one can find them. The star-nosed mole is the size of a hamster and the fastest eater in the world. It presses the creepy-looking star on its nose to the soil to find out what's in 10 to 12 different places in a second. The star has 100,000 nerve fibers in it that send information to the mole's brain. Not a bad compensation for almost no eyesight and good enough to hunt insects while being perfectly harmless to humans. Tailless whip scorpions, unlike their relatives, don't carry venom or toxins and can't bite, sting, or hurt humans in any other possible way. They can't even chew, so they sit and wait for an insect to pass by and detect it with their legs. They make great pets, and owners even put them on their faces without fear. That's okay, you go first. I'll watch from over here. So, you drive along a desert road when suddenly you feel a bump like you hit something. You stop the car and look in the rear view mirror. Nothing. Weird. You get out of the car and take a good look on the road, and that's when you see it. A large black and white bug is hurrying across the road. It has a slightly flattened shape, as if, wait, did you just drive your car over it and it's still alive? Yep, that's the ironclad beetle for you. These hardy little fellas have an astonishingly sturdy carapace that protects them from incredible harm, even from a car at full speed. The bug shell is strong enough to withstand tons of pressure, and what's inside the beetle is flexible and won't easily be crushed either. Even if you take a hammer and try to drive a needle through its body, chances are high you'll just end up with a broken needle and a hale and hardy bug. Cockroaches are another species of survivors. Although a regular slipper is their worst nightmare, they can withstand crazy conditions. They aren't much afraid of fire and can hold their breath for about 40 minutes underwater. A cockroach can also go without food and water for about 9 days. So even if you take everything edible from your house and move to another place for a week, the pest will still greet you when you get back. Hey, how was your trip? Did you get us anything? A tiger moth is so called because of its striped black and orange pattern, but it has a superpower allowing it to avoid its nemesis, the bat. Bats have weak eyesight and navigate with the help of ultrasonic waves. They basically scream at stuff and listen to the echo to find their way around obstacles and hunt for food. Tiger moths have learned to listen to the ultrasound clicks and even produce their own to confuse the predators. In one experiment, a tiger moth was placed in a dark enclosed space with 3 bats. The insect got out of it unscathed. The bats just couldn't find it. The tiny, humble frog hopper is the living proof that whatever humans invent, they can't beat nature to it. These bugs can leap the distance of 100 times their body length. It's almost like fleas. Adult insects have spring-like legs that allow them such feats. But young frog hoppers have little structures in their hind legs that look exactly like gears. When they want to leap, they need to bring their legs in sync with each other, and that's where the gears help them. When youngsters grow up and stop molting, the gears are lost, being unneeded any longer. Pea aphids might be small and unassuming, but they are, in fact, living solar batteries. They feed on plants and seem to have learned a few tricks from their lunch. Unlike most living creatures who get them from food, aphids produce their own carotenoids, pigments useful for immune system. It so happens that plants also use it to process sunlight, and aphids have mastered this trick as well. They can get energy directly from the sun and go about their day even without food if needed. You don't see it all around the world and sometimes swat at it, but you don't know that the creature you want to get rid of is absolutely special. The annoying housefly has incredible eyes and sense of speed. Its blinkers allow it to see everything around it, 360 degrees, no matter how quiet and careful you are. It can see you creeping in on it with that clumsy swatter of yours. Ha! Missed again! Yeah, nah. As for the sense of speed, flies feel everything in kind of slow motion, so no wonder they fly away so fast when you want to hit them. Bite the dust, human. Arachnophobia, anyone? Well, if there's any place to hide from spiders, it's a pool of water, isn't it? Not if you're facing a fishing spider. It's a hefty beast that can reach the size of your palm, and its name is not accidental. Its favorite dish is fish. The spider catches its prey by diving underwater, but its actual superpower is the ability to run on its surface. It creates small pockets of air with its feet that push the arachnid up, not letting it drown. and when the spider needs to go down, it just stops and dives. One more spider you don't want to mess with, aren't they all, is Darwin's bark spider. It's not as big and menacing as its fishing relative, but it just loves spinning its web. And when it does, it goes all in. Bark spiders are famous for throwing lines of their web across rivers and streams, and scientists are still not sure how they do that. What's worse, this web, pound for pound, is 25 times stronger than steel. It's also very flexible and can be bent however you like, even when it's a thick rope. Termites are the scare of all things wooden and of ants too. When ants encroach on their territory, termites go out of their notorious mounds and give back more than they receive. The insects are basically blind, but their heads are equipped with natural spitfire. They spit acid at their foes, driving them away quicker than when they got there. Don't even think about getting your fingers in the way of that acidic stream. It's a really unpleasant feeling. Speaking of spitting, as we were, bombardier beetles are the best at that. A look of this bug is menacing enough, but when it feels threatened, it will give out a large pop and spray the enemy with boiling hot liquid. There's a chamber inside the bug's belly that keeps two substances for that. When they mix before spraying, they react with each other and quickly get really hot. Even birds are in big trouble if they get into the beetle's way, and other insects simply have no chance against it. Parasitoid wasps are mind controllers of the insect world. They lay eggs inside other insects, especially roaches, and bend them to their will. The insect becomes placid and just lies there until the eggs hatch. And when they do, the wasp's little ones take over control of its body and make it do their every bidding. Kinda terrifying if you ask me. Dung beetles have no psychic powers, but they don't need them. They're the most powerful heavy lifters in the world. Their favorite expression is, "Been there, done that." No, really. A single dung beetle can haul a load 1,000 times its own weight. It's like a person lifting 10 elephants. These bugs need their namesake substance to eat and lay eggs into. Yum. And they differ between each other. The most popular ones are rollers, but there are also tunnelers and dwellers. Rollers are the ones that make the famous balls. Tunnelers dig right into the ground when they find food, and dwellers feel just fine sitting on top of their finds and not moving anywhere. King of the hill, if you will. See that beautiful pink flower? It's an orchid. And that similar one next to it? It's an orchid mantis. These tricky insects have mastered the art of mimicry to excellence. They can hide in plain sight, and even the sharp eyes of birds of prey often can't recognize them for what they are. Mantis sits absolutely still, waiting for its prey to come closer. And when it does, the predator lunges at it at mind-numbing speed. After lunch, the mantis assumes its original position and waits for the next unwary insect to come by. Desert locust is a bane of many crops because it comes in thousands at a time and eats everything that grows on land. One locust can't do much harm because it's just an overgrown grasshopper, but they typically don't travel alone. Locusts are often pictured flying in a swirling cloud over a field and landing all at once. That picture is pretty correct. These loud insects can fly dozens of miles at a time without rest, and they fly quite fast. But the most incredible thing about them is that locusts can keep up the same speed for the whole duration of their flight. Unlike birds that depend on the wind, locusts can adjust their wings and control the amount of lift they generate. This helps them use the wind to their advantage and not be thwarted by it. Okay, time for me to bug out. Bye. You know, it's a good thing, but some animals clearly let you know they're no joke. Sharks with rows and rows of razor-sharp teeth, a scorpion's venomous stinger, the ominous sound of a rattlesnake about to strike. You get the picture. Yet plenty of seemingly harmless creatures wreak more havoc than even the scariest animals out there. Like the spotted lanternfly, a pretty little bug from parts of Taiwan, Vietnam, and northern China that managed to bring its own terror around the world. Yikes! Let me explain. Only about as big as the tip of your thumb, this bug is easily identifiable. It has gray or brownish forewings with black spots. Under those, you have bright red hind wings that make this critter a real beauty. But don't be fooled. This insect can be an ecosystem's worst nightmare. And it's on the move, traveling to Korea, Japan, and even across the ocean to Middle America. Along the way, it's damaged countless plant species. In the US, it's been infesting maple and birch trees. So, what's the big deal? The lanternfly pierces the tissue of leaves and stems. Then it slurps out the sap. This leaves a sugary coat on the leaves that allows mold to thrive. The plant or tree can't grow after that, and it eventually wilts. This can then impact food production, trees, and developing forests. Now, don't worry too much. This bug doesn't bite or sting people, but the plant loss they cause is enough to get the highest authorities involved in the case. Stepping off the land and diving into the ocean, we see a creature whose body is covered with venomous spines. Meet the crown of thorns starfish. It spends its days crawling around and feeding on coral. That's usually great for the local ecosystem. They eat the super fast-growing corals, giving the slower species a chance to catch up in the race. But when the starfish grows too large in numbers, the real problems start. They can quickly eat up vast parts of the coral reef system. This starfish is even partly to blame for the huge losses in Australia's Great Barrier Reef. A 2012 study showed that they were one of 2 leading causes of coral loss in the last 27 years, them and tropical cyclones. Even worse, their spines produce a neurotoxin that causes a sharp stinging pain that lasts for hours. If you happen to touch or step on one of these starfish, the spines can break off into your skin. Next comes possible infection and a series of other problems. So, stay away from this one. Next up, we have the common carp. You might know the colorful version of this fish, the koi. Those were specially bred to look more vivid. Carps are freshwater bottom feeders. They eat plants, animals, algae, and other microorganisms living in the mud in rivers and lakes. The problem is, their feeding lowers the water quality. Carp uproot the plants they munch on and make the water cloudy. That doesn't allow enough light to get through, so some species struggle. They also produce large amounts of nitrogen. This makes the water uninhabitable for other fish. And that's why many people consider them pests. Unbelievably, the elephant is also on this list of nature's terrors. To find food and water, these giants roam across vast territories. Along the way, they break branches, pull up bushes, and push over entire trees. If they uproot a few here and there, it's usually easy for forests to recover from the damage. But the situation got bad enough at one point for scientists to be concerned. Trees throughout East Africa were severely damaged by passing elephants. Keep in mind, the gentle giants weren't entirely at fault. At the time, there were many fires pushing the elephants on the move. And it isn't all bad either. After elephants munch on their fruits and veggies, they transport the seeds miles away. Ooh, how do they do that? Oh yeah, elephant doo-doo. Then new trees start to grow, and when there's no available water, they dig deep holes in the ground with their feet, trunks, and tusks. That also helps other thirsty animals in the area. Other ecosystem wreckers are kangaroos. Australia's been struggling with the animal's overpopulation recently. A decade of wet weather brought a lot of food and abundant marsupials. They went from 27 million in 2010 to 45 million in 6 years. Kangaroos started wiping out native plants, and many animals were left without food and habitat. By stripping the grasses anchoring down the ground, they cause erosion in areas that struggle to preserve the soil. Locusts form enormous swarms and spread across areas, destroying crops in their path. This leads to a shortage of food, and some species can't survive. The most notorious are the desert locusts that live in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. In quiet times, they cover an area of 6 million square miles. That's almost twice the size of Canada. But during a spike in their numbers, they can cover 1/5 of the Earth's land. A regular swarm that blackens the skies can be 460 miles in size. It contains 60 million locusts every half a mile. Each locust eats its weight in plants every day. A swarm the size of Paris can eat the same amount of food in a day as half of France's population. Goats are nothing to scoff at either. They're voracious eaters with an appetite for shrubs, trees, and all sorts of plants. They can turn rich, dense woodlands into barren grasslands when left to do as they please. The problem became more noticeable in Australia and other isolated islands, where people tried to start a settlement. They dig into the Earth's crust with their hooves, the goats, not the people. When the weather's bad, winds will transport the loose soil and erosion begins. Another cute yet invasive species is the cane toad. They became successful invaders in Oceania, the Caribbean, the US, and a few other places. In fact, they were first introduced to eradicate other pests, but ended up becoming pests themselves. Cane toads are toxic, and scientists link them with the extinction of several species in northern Queensland. They're dangerous to wildlife since their poison glands can take out birds, mammals, fish, and reptiles. They'll compete for food, and they'll eat anything they can swallow – kitchen scraps, your pet's food, and even other animals. Some species will multiply in rotting wood, but the mountain pine beetle will exterminate live trees. The insects invaded the Canadian Rockies, and millions of acres have been affected. They strike live trees by laying eggs under the bark. That disrupts the phloem, basically a plant's vascular system, like veins in humans, and stops the circulation. Eventually, the trees turn brown and rot. It takes them 2 weeks to wipe out the outer layer of a tree. They're pretty robust too, since they're a resistor to temperatures as low as minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Once they infest a tree, it's a goner. Jellyfish have been part of the global ecosystem for 500 million years. But now it seems like they're taking over the seas, maybe even the world. Recent strong winds and hot weather spells have pushed large numbers of blue-bottle jellyfish near the shores. There, hordes of them have been stinging large numbers of people. In 2018, more than 1,000 people were stung in Florida. In 2019, 13,000 cases were recorded in Queensland, Australia, in just 1 week. It doesn't end there. In 2011, 2 reactors had to be shut down in Scotland because jellyfish started blocking the cooling filters. Something similar happened in Sweden in 2013 with a power plant being shut down. In 1999, an island in the Philippines had a complete blackout because of jellyfish. Too many jellies can trigger a deterioration in the ecosystem. But even though they multiply like crazy, the numbers aren't alarming, at least not yet. One of the world's most invasive species, but probably not for the reasons you're thinking, are rats. They're expert survivors, and that makes them dangerous when they're introduced to new areas. Like the time black rats invaded Lord Howe Island in the Tasman Sea. They destroyed crops, gobbled up the fruits and seeds of many local plants, and prevented them from reproducing. They also took bird eggs from nests and ate anything in their path. Experts believe that mice first appeared in the area in 1850. Rats showed up in 1918 when they escaped from a sinking ship. In a century, they played a massive role in the extinction of 5 local bird species, 13 invertebrates, and 2 plants. It got to the point that a zoo took in flocks of 2 other endangered bird species to help them survive. There were 150,000 rats and 200,000 mice on the island, but a nearly extinct bird species successfully went back home after eradication. And lastly, there's humans. Come on, need I explain?
Bzzz, ouch! There's hardly a person who's never been stung by a bee. It's definitely not a pleasant feeling. But bees aren't normally angry creatures. You probably just scared the little guy. These insects are super important for pollination. Their existence is one of the main reasons why our plants keep growing. Bees only sting when they feel threatened. If you get stung, it might mean you've come too close to them. Or, more importantly, that you've come too close to their hive. Each hive can hold between 50,000 to 80,000 honeybees. Just like us humans, bees do everything to protect their home. But instead of alarms and complicated security systems, they use their stingers to ward off enemies. When honeybees sting, they release something called a pheromone. Pheromones are chemical substances that affect the behavior of animals of the same species. If one bee charges at you, the pheromones are likely to stir up all nearby bees, and they will readily join in. That's one meeting you'll definitely want to avoid. Here's a fun fact. It's only female bees that can sting. Larger male drone bees don't even have stingers. This is because the stinger is basically a modified egg-laying device. Queen bees also have stingers. These bees are bigger than the average worker. The queen has an average size of just under 1 inch. It's about twice the size of your regular worker bee. Because of its large size, many people think that the queen bee's sting hurts the most. So let's dive into it. First of all, queen bees rarely sting because of their job in the hive. The queen is the most important bee in the colony, as it's the only female that can reproduce. The queen has 2 main jobs in the hive. Number 1, she produces chemical scents that help unify the rest of the bees so they can work together. Number 2, she lays a lot of eggs, up to 2,000 a day. The queen is surrounded by worker bees who meet her every need at all times. They give her food. The attendant workers also collect and then distribute the queen's pheromones, which stops the workers from finding a new queen. But despite being the head of the hive and being much bigger than other bees, the queen's sting is actually the least painful. This is because regular bees have barbed stingers. This means that when they attack, the stinger gets stuck in your skin, making it really difficult to remove. The stinger also contains nasty venom that's packed with proteins. That's what causes the pain and affects your immune system and skin cells. The stinger continues to pump venom into your body for more than 10 minutes, or until it gets removed. But unlike workers, queen bees leave the hive very rarely. Their main job is to lay eggs, and it's down to the rest of the colony to protect the hive and the queen. That's why worker bees are the ones with the most powerful sting. This is how they can ward off potential dangers. The only reason the queen would really need to defend herself is against rival queens. Because of this, the queen has no need to develop a nasty stinger. Hers is instead a lot smoother. This means that the barbs don't get stuck in your skin, which can be mega uncomfortable. While this might sound good, it does come with a bit of bad news. Because of the smoothness of its stinger, the queen can jab you multiple times. The stinger is attached to the bee's digestive tract, nerves, and muscles, all of which are essential for the bee to function normally. When workers sting, they're unable to pull their stinger out because of the barbs, and when they try to get free, it doesn't end well for them. But the queen's stinger doesn't get stuck. That's why the bee doesn't feel any negative consequences. And still, she'll basically only sting you if she doesn't have one of her bodyguards nearby, which is highly unlikely. So, what's the worst place to be stung by a bee? A man called Michael Smith decided to find out. He got stung on 25 different body parts and rated each prick on a pain scale between 1 and 10. He found out that the most tender area was the nostrils, scoring a 9 out of 10, followed by the upper lip, which he estimated as an 8.7. The 3 least painful locations were the skull, middle toe tip, and upper arm. All of these scored a 2.3. But moving back to the queen, how does a regular bee gain this title? The queen bee rarely needs replacing, as she can live for a whopping 5 years. At the same time, a worker bee born in the summer usually only survives for about 6 weeks. But if the queen passes away or moves to another hive, the colony needs to replace her. Doing this requires something called royal jelly, which nurse bees produce in their heads. They feed it to newly hatched honeybee larvae. It's basically a superfood that contains loads of useful stuff, including vitamin B, proteins, hormones, and sugars. After feeding baby bees for 3 days, workers select just a few larvae and continue giving them the royal jelly. The others will have a less nutritional diet. The royal jelly triggers new phases of development for these growing bees, and one of the most important is growing special organs they need to lay eggs. But people still don't fully understand how this process works. Some scientists say that it's not the royal jelly itself that causes a bee to turn into a queen. They think it's the exclusion of other natural plant-based chemicals from the queen's diet. But even though we aren't 100% sure how these special bees appear, we do know why there's just one queen in the end. When the first queen emerges, she searches for the other bees who've been fed the same royal jelly. And then she wipes out the competition. If several queens emerge at the same time, it's time to grab your popcorn. They'll Hunger Games it out in a dramatic fight until only one remains. And that's how bees get their queen. Other bees in the hive also have important jobs. These include foraging for food, tending to young larvae, and building a honeycomb. Drones, or male bees, have one singular job. They mate with the queen. And when they're not trying to mate, they eat from honey reserves and do pretty much nothing. Female bees, or worker bees, do everything else. They keep the hive clean, take care of larvae, tend to the queen, store honey, build cells, forage, guard the nest, pollinate, and even feed male bees. Each bee knows exactly what job to do. That's because their specific hormones activate parts of their genetic makeup that tell them what needs to be done and when it needs to be done. Bees have 4 job phases in their lifetime. Phase 1 starts about 3 weeks after they get born. That's when they get to work cleaning the cells from which they've emerged. 3 days later, they enter Phase 2. In this phase, they're in charge of feeding other bees. This lasts for about a week. Then they enter Phase 3. They move further away from the hive center and become handy helpers. They build the honeycomb and guard the hive's entrance. This period also lasts for around a week. After that, they enter the 4th and final phase, the foraging stage. It's definitely the most dangerous part of our stripy friends' lives. This is where they leave the nest, look for pollen, bring it home, and feed the colony. They also leave a stinky footprint on the flowers they touch when collecting pollen. This way, they can figure out if their bee relatives have been here or if it's been a stranger. Sometimes they discover their own footprints. Unbelievable! This phase doesn't last very long though, only around 10 days, as it makes bees super tired. After such a short life, where they work non-stop, worker bees then leave the hive to never return. At the same time, if a worker passes away inside the hive, special undertaker bees carry this bee out. But while bees' lives may be short, this pattern seems to be working out quite well for the species. After all, they've been around for over a whopping 130 million years, and counting.
Poor Pete. Pete is so scared of bugs, all he wants is to find a place on Earth where he can be safe from them. After years of research and traveling, he eventually finds the place to go, Antarctica. Pete makes it there, confident that bugs wouldn't survive in the cold. Little did he know that insects are on every continent of this planet. Well, not really. He was kind of right about Antarctica. It isn't home to a lot of bugs. In fact, there are only one true species of insect that calls this place home. It's a wingless midge called Belgica antarctica. This fly is tiny, but it's still Antarctica's largest terrestrial bug. Okay, so we've established there's literally no place on Earth you can escape insects. Well, that's not really true either. You might need to learn to swim, though, as the only place that doesn't have any bugs living within is the Earth's surface covered by the ocean. But why do insects hate it here so much? No one could really come up with a definitive explanation, but some think it's because the oceans lack the plants that insects use for food and shelter. They might as well be the largest network of secret agents on the planet, as insects have ears all over the place. Most of the time, though, these ears are not on their heads. Some have ears on their wings, some on their legs, and some even on their abdomens and necks. A lot of these bugs live pretty lonely lives, but there are some of them that actually have families, like the best beetles, for example. They can form family-like units in which both parents work to raise their young. They also have their own vocabulary and speak to each other by squeaking. Should an insect ever fall from a certain height, does it sustain any damage? Well, the subject is a bit more complex, but let's take ants, for example. They don't take any fall damage, and that's because they're so small. A lot of other bugs can technically fall from a height of miles and still be fine. The explanation has a lot to do with math and physics, which the bugs themselves have no time to study. But to put it simply, they're not nearly heavy enough to impact the surface they hit. As they fall, they don't actually gather speed, they slow down. An ant's relatively large surface area for that tiny weight creates a lot of drag as it moves through the air, so it ends up slowing down as it reaches the end of its flight. Speaking of ants, wasn't I doing that? There are about 1 quadrillion of them on the planet at any given moment. That's about 1.4 million ants per human, calculated for a world population of 7.3 billion people. If we put it that way, it's their planet, right? It's hard to imagine a fruit fly with an astronaut helmet on, but they were indeed the first living creatures to be launched into space. That was back in 1947, when they waved goodbye to the Earth in a V-2 rocket, reached an altitude of about 68 miles in less than 200 seconds. They then returned to Earth by parachute. Not all insects are that lucky. For example, caterpillars have a total of 12 eyes but are basically blind. Their simple little eyes can only distinguish between light and dark, so they can't actually see a clear picture of what's in front of them. And no, glasses won't help if that's what you're thinking. Some insects actually put a lot of work into their dating life. A good example is the stoneflies, which do push-ups to attract the ladies. Did you know butterflies taste the surroundings with their feet? Heard that right. That's because they have taste sensors on their feet that help them find food. So they stand on a leaf and give it a taste. If they figure out the plant is something that their caterpillars can eat, they place their eggs in this spot. But how do they eat, since they can't bite or chew? Well, they use their long tongue, which looks more like a tube, called a proboscis. It's basically a straw that helps butterflies to slurp up liquids, like nectar, for example. The ancestors of this crafty creature had lived on this planet way before the dinosaurs themselves. Fossil records show that ancient grasshoppers first came up more than 300 million years ago. Ever heard of bugs that are fans of rock music? Well, in a way, termites do, sort of, prefer this sound. Termites chew away at wood to figure out what kind of wood they have lying around. They use vibrations. Why? Because it helps them find the best source of food. If there's heavy metal or rock music playing, they can chew through the wood faster than at their regular speed. Do they slow their chewing down with Brahms or Bach, or just go to sleep? This is one type of insect you'll surely find difficult to see. This master of disguise looks like a leaf. Throughout their existence, they managed to develop this type of camouflage so the predators miss them in plain sight. They can even rock back and forth to copy the movement made by leaves blown by the wind. Nature has its own weather forecasters, the mighty crickets. Well, they work more like a thermometer, if you like. Turns out you can manually calculate the temperature outside by counting the cricket chirps you hear in a minute and then divide it by 4. You should then add 40 to that number you get, and there you have it, an estimated temperature number in Fahrenheit. Crickets even have their own unique song, which they use to attract mates and defend their territory. Yes, music that repels and attracts at the same time. You should consider ladybugs if you're interested in free gardening services. That's because they feed on other insects, some that can actually damage your plants. They can keep fruit flies and other mites at bay. A ladybug might end up eating more than 5,000 insects in its lifetime, which adds up to about a year. Let's get into some awesome data about the busy bees. Their wings can beat 190 times per second. Now, I'll do the math for you. That's 11,400 times a minute. What a workout! Well, they do need that strength, since a single honeybee colony can produce around 220 pounds of honey each year. That's a staggering 220 jars. It's nature's equivalent of a factory. But you'd have to teach bees to make honey. It's not in their instinct to do so. Another fascinating aspect of bees' life is that the temperature inside any beehive is always around 93 degrees, regardless of the outside weather. That's because they're really good at insulating their surroundings. Bees also have different stomachs for eating and for storing honey. It's the bee's equivalent of not doing business while you're eating. Okay, now don't jump out of your chair just yet, as you might actually enjoy some of these facts about spiders. They do help a lot with maintaining our crops free from other insects. So, if you think about it, we do have something to thank them for. Their eyesight is also incredible. They can see spectrums of light that we can't, like UVA and UVB light. And speaking of their superpowers, a strand of spider silk is 5 times stronger than a strand of steel, of the same thickness, of course. Some scientists believe that if spiders were as large as humans, certainly hope not, their web could stop objects as big as airplanes. And that spider silk, it's actually a liquid, but it does harden when exposed to air. They're also quite sneaky themselves and have evolved to look more like ants. Why? So they can better avoid other predators and hunt ants better. Spiders don't have wings, that's for sure, but the jumping ones can hop up to 50 times their own length. Well, otherwise, I still get the heebie-jeebies when I think about spiders. How about you?
Around 80% of all animals on Earth are insects. But how well do you know their world? Let's see if you can guess whether these amazing facts are myths or true. Here's the first one. Cockroaches can run on 2 legs, just like humans. Myth or true? That's correct. Cockroaches don't do it just for fun. Running on 2 legs is more energy efficient because it's easier for their little brains to process. If you take a closer look at the cockroach, you're gonna spot that all pairs of legs have different lengths. This creates unnecessary drag when the cockroach needs to reach high speeds. Their nervous system can get overloaded and confused by trying to control all 3 pairs of legs. So, it chooses to move just 1 pair, the rear legs that use energy most efficiently. Check this out. A full moon makes mosquitoes bite 500% more actively. Myth or true? True. Just like werewolves, mosquitoes get fierce when the moon is full. That's because they use visual cues and receptors to spot their next dinner, and it's way easier to do so when the moon is full. Mosquitoes spot movement by detecting infrared radiation emitted by warm bodies at distances of up to 115 feet. Salt marsh mosquitoes took this to the next level. They're such gourmets that they can travel up to 40 miles just for the sake of eating. Only male mosquitoes bite. Does it sound real? Nope. In fact, only female mosquitoes do bite people or animals because they need a blood meal to produce eggs. On average, they take in about 5 millionths of a liter during one feeding. Meanwhile, male mosquitoes prefer eating plant juices, such as nectar. It's enough for them to get the necessary sugar and boost their energy levels. And since males don't bite, they cannot transmit diseases. But females, on the other hand, can get infected with germs when they bite sick people or animals. Here's the next fact. Alligator ticks are called so because they can reach the size of a crocodile. True or false? That's false, but still, it's the largest aquatic insect on Earth. According to Guinness World Records, toe biter, or sometimes called an alligator tick, can grow to be more than 4 inches long, which is basically the size of an average leaf. They can be found around the world, but they're especially common in North America. Toe biters perfectly blend into the landscape because their dark brown body mimics the leaves of the wetlands. They're predatory by nature. Usually they eat small tadpoles and other insects, but sometimes they take down bigger prey, like snakes and even turtles. Those who experienced meeting these creatures claim that their bites are the most painful injuries a human can suffer. Flies can poison your food just by landing on it. Myth or true? Unfortunately, that's true. Not only are flies annoying, but they also regurgitate some of their stomach contents when they land on your food. And houseflies are just one of many fly species that do so. Ugh! It happens because flies don't have teeth. Instead of chewing, they use their straw-shaped mouth to slurp their food. They secrete digestive juices on their future meal as they land on it, and once the food has been liquefied, the flies are able to slurp it up. But the real danger lies with their feet, not their mouths. Flies spend a lot of time walking on all sorts of dirty things, which can be sources of disease. Studies have revealed that flies can transfer bacteria even if they're only in contact with an area for a short period of time. So, if you ever spot some flies hanging around your food, it makes sense to cover it. Or, if you're concerned about your health, even forget about finishing your meal. Here comes the next fact. Females of toe biters carry their eggs on their backs. That's false. In fact, they lay eggs on their males' backs. After that, the future father carries the eggs as a backpack wherever he goes. As sweet as it sounds, this sight is still pretty disgusting, and it might send shivers down your spine. And more bad news. Even though they're called water bugs, they can fly. So don't just watch out below because they can approach from the sky. Ugh. Next fact. Ants are one of the most dominant animals on the planet. True or myth? True. Collectively, ants alone contribute up to 20% of the entire animal biomass on the planet. These creatures are pretty ancient. They appeared around 160 million years ago and took over a wide variety of ecological niches. As a result, today they count about 16,000 different species with over 10,000 trillion individuals. Check this out. Butterflies taste with their feet. Myth or true? Sounds like fiction, but it's true. Butterflies have taste receptors on their feet to help them find their host plants and select food. Female butterflies land on various plants and drum the leaves with their feet. This technique helps them squeeze juices from the plant. Their legs have spines with receptors, helping them to detect the right match of chemicals in the plant juice. And once a female butterfly finds the proper plant, she lays eggs. Also, both male and female butterflies step on their potential food to sense the content of dissolved sugars. Just imagine what human restaurants would look like if people were tasting with their feet. Next fact. Butterfly wings are transparent. Does it sound real? That's true. Butterflies have the image of colorful and vibrant creatures. But, strangely enough, their wings are transparent. They are covered with thousands of tiny scales, and these scales reflect light in different colors. But underneath all of those scales, a butterfly wing consists of several layers of chitin. It's the same protein that makes up an insect's exoskeleton. These layers are so thin that you can see right through them. Butterflies only live from 2 to 4 short weeks, and you can determine their age by the quality of their wings. With age, the scales begin to fall off the wings, leaving transparent spots. Fruit flies were the first living creatures to be sent into space. Myth or true? True! A long time before sending dogs or humans into space, scientists studied fruit flies' reactions to radiation and space flights. This helped to predict how space conditions and zero gravity might influence human beings, because we share many genes with fruit flies. And after several decades of research, on February 20th, 1947, fruit flies became the first living organism to go to space and return. Next fact. Caterpillars have 2 eyes. Myth or true? That's a myth. In fact, the majority of caterpillars have 12 eyes called stemmata. If you look closely, you can see 6 tiny eyelets on each side of the caterpillar's head. One pair of eyes is usually placed closer to the antennae. It's easy to believe that 12 eyes would guarantee excellent eyesight, but that's not the case. A caterpillar uses them to distinguish light and dark and navigate its way. That's why sometimes caterpillars move their heads from side to side. Maybe they just love rap music. But scientists believe that it helps caterpillars understand the distance between objects. A few species of caterpillars have between 10 and 14 eyes, but these are usually more primitive forms, which also have several features making them different from other moths and butterflies. Scorpions can breathe underwater. Myth or true? That's false. Although scorpions are not very good swimmers, they can still store oxygen to survive underwater. And some species can hold their breath for up to 6 days. Scorpions can survive underwater thanks to the so-called book lungs, which actually look like a book. The pages of that book act like membranes that store oxygen. Since scorpions don't waste a lot of oxygen on dry land, they can just store the rest in their lungs. And once a scorpion enters the water, it has around 48 hours to hang out carefree. After that, it will need to come out of the water for the next inhale. And this cute little creature is called the northern pseudoscorpion. It's the breath-holding champion among scorpions. It can hold its breath for up to 17 days. Let's just hope it doesn't learn to fly.
Harlequin beetle looks formidable, and it is. This bug's body reaches 3 inches in length, and its front legs are often even longer than that. They help it crawl on trees, getting from branch to branch, and males also use them to impress females. Ooh la la! Despite the looks, harlequin beetles aren't really dangerous. They won't bite you even if you corner them. And if you, by any chance, grow cabbage in your backyard, you probably would try to corner them. These bugs feed on its leaves. Still, better not to touch them with your bare hands. They exude a foul-smelling liquid that both stinks and stings, causing skin irritation. Wear those gloves, will ya? You know what also stinks? Now, besides my socks, squash bugs. If you have a garden patch, these pests can be more than just a nuisance. They could spoil the squash you've been lovingly growing for the fall, hence the name. And if you squash them, they begin to smell just awful, hence the pun. Squash bugs are also often mistaken for stink bugs, but those are even more notorious. They begin stinking even if you so much as touch them. Wow, sensitive. Giraffe weevil is probably the most harmless little fella on this list, but not much is known about it yet. It gets its name from the long, spiny neck. This adaptation helps them build nests and fight over other weevils for food and mates. It may be placid, but the red covering of its wings lets predators know the bug is either foul-tasting or poisonous, or both. Likewise, you shouldn't eat monarch butterflies or their caterpillars. These beautiful insects are often kept as pets and were once almost chosen as the national insect of the US. But the little-known fact is that they're highly poisonous. Monarchs feed on milkweed, a plant containing a potent toxin. They've acquired immunity to it, and, as a side effect, butterflies accumulate the toxin in their bodies. This makes them a very unappetizing dish for birds and other predators. The concentration is so high that even humans that accidentally, or not, eat a monarch caterpillar can experience quite unpleasant consequences. Mealworm beetles are abundant almost anywhere, so you must have seen them. The most probable place to find them is a poultry farm, though. Mealworm larvae are often used to feed farm birds, and that's where the danger lies. Mealworms carry lots of diseases that can spread among birds and then to humans. They also like to eat chicken food and even insulation on farms, so they're not the best choice of a meal for birds, despite their name. And adult beetles produce a poison that's not harmful in small doses but causes allergy in high concentrations. If you happen to be at a poultry farm, make sure you avoid those beetles. Tiger beetles come in lots of shapes and colors. but they all have two traits in common: long thin legs and sharp sword-like mandibles. Those legs allow them to run faster than almost any other insect. So fast, in fact, that when they're on a hunt, they sometimes have to stop and look around for a few seconds. Their eyes and brains simply can't process the picture quickly enough, so they wait for the landscape to load around them. Most tiger beetles are harmless, but if you see one with an orange pattern on its back, don't touch it. These bugs produce cyanide to protect themselves, and this chemical can do a lot of harm both to animals and people. If you touch a tiger beetle and then rub your mouth or eyes, it might cause severe irritation. Oh look! See that wonderful pattern on a flower over there? Looks like an impressionist painting, and in a sense it is. That's a Picasso bug. These critters feed on plants and are mostly placid, but think twice if you want to take a closer look. It's not a ladybug. When touched, it'll emit a strong odor that's not exactly flowery. Worse still, you might have a hard time getting rid of the stench even hours after the encounter. Whew! Walking out of a pine forest, you notice a weird movement right beneath your feet. It looks like a little fuzzy train that's several dozen feet long. In fact, it's a defense technique of pine processionary caterpillars. They travel nose to tail in large groups to protect each other. They look really particular, but trying to disrupt the column isn't the best idea. Each car of this natural train has hundreds of needle-sharp bristles. If you touch any of them with your bare hand, they'll first cause sharp pain and then some other unpleasant reactions. Predators don't like pine processionaries for the same reason. Asian giant hornets live mostly in Asian countries, but they were reported in North America in 2019. These beasts are big, yellow, and vicious. It's impossible to confuse a giant hornet with any other bee or wasp. They're much larger and a lot more aggressive. But the worst thing about them is their stinger, which is more than 3 times longer than that of a honeybee. The stinger contains a really potent venom, and several stings from an Asian giant hornet can bring down even a large animal and a human too. And if that wasn't enough, these creatures can even spray their venom, aiming at the eyes. Needless to say, that's an unforgettable experience. Lenomia is a rather unassuming little moth that doesn't pose a threat to anyone. But before it becomes a moth, it has to go through a caterpillar stage. And that's when you don't want to cross its path. Lenomia caterpillars are covered in hair-thin bristles that contain a powerful venom. But even if you know not to touch them, you still might get pricked. Caterpillars perfectly blend in with tree trunks to add to their protection. A person might unknowingly lean on a trunk with lenomias huddled on it, and they won't hesitate to stick those needles into the unlucky guest. If you get stung, immediately seek medical attention. Now, let's admit, all centipedes are terrifying, and perhaps one of the most horrible species is a Texas red-headed centipede. First of all, it looks like it's ascended from your deepest, darkest nightmares. A black sectioned body, dozens of yellowish legs that look more like claws, and a red head with 2 long horns. A picture enough to make me run for it in a split second. Whew, there I go! Being pretty large, these crawlers have a voracious appetite, munching on toads, lizards, and an occasional rat. Sometimes, when desperate, they can even catch a bat right in the middle of a flight. And of course, red-headed centipedes are venomous, fitting for such an appearance. Luckily, they're not interested in humans. And that's mutual. Now, this critter isn't large, but it's very defensive, meaning you don't want to cross it. Its name speaks for itself, the devil's coach horse. A total black bug that resembles an earwig. It will raise its behind and open its powerful jaws when threatened. This pose makes it look like a scorpion, and at this point, better back off. If you don't, the devil's coach horse will start to emit a foul stench and ooze unpleasant liquid from its mouth for defense. And if that doesn't scare you off, it will eventually bite, which is quite painful, you know. Just leave the beast alone, okay? Velvet ants aren't ants at all. They're a kind of wingless wasp that just look a lot like ants. These bugs don't form large colonies and usually live alone, hiding in tall grass. This behavior has given them another nickname, cow ants, because when a cow is grazing nearby, it might step on a velvet ant and get a painful bite in return. Humans also get bitten sometimes, especially if they walk barefoot. Velvet ants are venomous, but their venom is less potent than that of bees, so it's not really dangerous. Still, the pain from such a bite is serious. And if you want to squash this bug, good luck! They have an unusually tough carapace that protects them from other stinging insects and even birds. Puss moths get their name from their furry, fuzzy appearance. It's like they're little fluffy flying kitties. Moths might be cute, but their caterpillars, as always, should only be looked at, not touched. Despite the even fuzzier looks, a puss caterpillar is covered in thousands of hollow spines that break off the critter's back upon contact and inject their venom. And what a venom it is! Puss caterpillars are the most venomous caterpillars in the US. One sting of this little monster can result in days and even weeks of sickness. And if you're allergic to it, then I can only wish you best of luck. Bees first appeared on Earth 130 million years ago, and they outlived dinos. What helped them survive for so long is an incredibly complex structure of their society and teamwork. Each bee has its own role and responsibility. Some of them build and repair their home, some bees protect it, others clean the hive and get food. But what if you could sneak into a hive and figure out how this whole system works? What would you see inside? For some mysterious reason, it's easy for you to get past the guards. But if you were a bee from another colony, they wouldn't let you in without a fight. The guard bees look rather intimidating. They stand on their back four legs at the hive's entrance, their front legs raised in the air. These bees inspect every insect entering the hive with their antennae and front legs. Each hive has its own odor, and the guards can understand if a bee belongs to their colony by smelling it. Only the bees that live in the hive can get inside. Suddenly, you see something strange. One of the guard bees has detected an intruder. An alien bee must have mistakenly tried to enter the wrong hive. But it's carrying a load of nectar, and the guard lets it in. Apparently, they don't mind accepting free gifts of food, even from strangers. You feel too curious to linger there any longer. The hive has only one entrance. You notice that the walls around it look strange. You take a closer look and understand that it's coated with a thin layer of some substance. It's propolis, hardened plant resin produced by bees. It helps fight infections and cures different health problems. A bit further, you can see countless honeycombs. They're densely packed hexagonal cells made of beeswax. Bees use them to store food, pollen, and honey. That's where they keep eggs, larvae, and pupae. Honeycombs are fixed to the walls of the hive. They stretch from top to bottom and are even attached to the sides. But you spot narrow passageways along the comb edges. Bees use them to move around the hive. You might also be able to squeeze through one of these tunnels. After exploring the place, you figure out that bees store honey in the upper part of the comb. Beneath, there are cells that contain pollen. Then, there are cells used for keeping eggs with future worker bees. And at the very bottom, there are drone eggs. Of course, your ultimate goal is to see the queen bee, but it's not that easy to find her. First, you come across lots of other bees. Most of them are workers. They make up the largest part of the hive's population, and they're all ladies. Each of them has its own task. The most common of them is foraging. You spot a bee leaving a hive and decide to follow it. The queen can wait a bit. You want to see how bees provide food for the hive. The bee is buzzing ahead of you. After visiting a couple of flowers, it suddenly starts wiggling while hovering in one place. Ah, that's the famous bee dance. That's how bees communicate. Once a forager finds a perfect supply of nectar, it starts to perform a very precise dance. It consists of a series of straight lines and figure eights. Throughout the dance, the bee is also shaking its wings. How long the dance lasts means how far away from the hive the nectar is. Every 75 milliseconds is another 330 feet to the distance, and how intense the dance is depends on the richness of the source of the nectar. The stronger the waggle is, the more nectar the bee has found. And there's also the angle of the dance. It shows the direction of the nectar in relation to the sun. Your bee must have found tons of nectar. It's practically vibrating. Suddenly, it starts flying back to the hive. You follow it. There, the bee does a shake dance in front of the other worker bees. This is how it tells other bees they need to go foraging right away. You decide to stay behind and just watch what will happen. Soon, the bees return. They've brought back a lot of nectar that needs to be ripened into honey. Your bee does a tremble dance this time. It's shaking its legs in a way that makes its body tremble all over. This little dance makes other workers get down to process the nectar. It's time for you to resume your search. You dive back into the hive and begin to squeeze through small passageways. You come across the cells where worker bees begin their lives as eggs. It takes a bee 21 days to develop from an egg into a full-grown worker. The first task of this new worker is to clean the cell where it grew. The cell then becomes a nursery for a new egg, and the bee looks after this egg. Later, it feeds the larva and keeps it warm. During the next stage of its life, when it's 12 to 20 days old, the bee starts doing chores around the hive. It produces wax, stores pollen and nectar, builds the comb, guards the entrance, and so on. When the bee turns 20 days old, it becomes a forager. It looks for and delivers pollen, nectar, and tree resin to make propolis. The bee also brings water. Bees need it for drinking and cooling the hive. At one point, you see something that looks like a hospital room. There, worker bees look after those that feel unwell. The doctors bring them different types of honey depending on their infection. If there's no other way, they remove a sick bee from the hive. It helps to prevent the entire colony from getting ill. And then there are also temperature control bees. The temperature in the hive is usually around 95 degrees Fahrenheit. It's crucial to keep it this way, not hotter, not colder. Otherwise, the eggs won't hatch. You see a group of bees and instantly understand they're temperature bees. Apparently, the temperature in the hive has dropped, and now the bees are trying to warm it up. They're vibrating in a special way, which raises their body temperature, and you can feel the air around you become a bit warmer. And if they needed to cool the hive, they would go and gather some water droplets. Then they would bring this water on their backs. Once in the hive, the temperature bees would buzz their wings very fast, making the water evaporate and lower the temperature. You move further and soon come across a bee you haven't seen before. It has huge eyes, a large body, and no stinger. It's a drone, the only kind of male bee in the hive. Drones don't have any foraging tools either. Their only purpose is to mate with the queen and care for her. The drone's life isn't too long. For one thing, if this bee manages to mate with the queen, it never survives the process. And if there's a food shortage or winter is coming, worker bees usually kick drones out of the hive and don't let them back in. Wow, that's harsh. You keep going until you finally notice a nursery. There, you spot a bee that is twice the size of a worker bee. Your quest has come to an end. That's the queen. This bee is the most important one for the hive because it's the only bee that can lay eggs. Despite her title, the queen doesn't actually rule, and her brain is smaller than that of a worker bee. But she produces special pheromones that influence the mood of the entire hive. The queen also gives birth to every single bee in the colony. When the queen is still a larva, worker bees feed her royal jelly. That's a goop with super high sugar content. A larger cell, along with such a diet, leads to a bigger body and the future queen's ability to emit the pheromones. When the queen has mated with drones, she returns to the hive. 3 days later, she starts laying eggs and never stops. She works especially hard in the spring, laying one egg every 20 seconds. No wonder that later in the year, the colony already has a population of 30,000 to 60,000 bees. But wait, something strange is happening here. A group of worker bees, in fact lots of them, might be half the colony, leave the hive with the queen leading them. It means the colony has become too big. The queen goes outside for the first time since mating, and the whole swarm sets off in search of a new home. Back in the hive, a new queen hatches from an egg 8 days later. Well, here you are, running from a swarm of bees. You try swatting them away, but there are just too many. Their sharp stingers are getting closer and closer. Just ahead, you spot a lake and make a split-second decision. Without thinking twice, you dive right in. Now you're underwater, eyes squeezed shut, holding your breath as tightly as possible. It feels safe, for now. But the moment you come up for air, you'll realize you've just made the biggest mistake of your life. I mean, jumping into water seems like a smart move, probably because at some point in your life, you've seen bees floating lifelessly in a swimming pool. So, naturally you think, okay, if I dive underwater, they'll follow me in, drown, and I'll get out without a scratch. Sure, that logic checks out, but in reality, you'd be setting yourself up for something much, much worse. Now, before I explain why diving into water is actually a terrible idea, let's talk about bees for a second. There are over 20,000 different bee species worldwide. To put that into perspective, that's more than all the bird and mammal species on Earth combined. Thankfully, not all bees are aggressive. Solitary bees, for example, don't have honey stored away to protect. And in the bee world, that basically means they're chill. They have no reason to attack you. Plus, male solitary bees don't even have stingers. Then there are bumblebees. They do have stingers, but they're pretty small. Usually bumblebees are gentle and mind their own business. Getting stung typically only happens if a bee ends up in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like if you accidentally step on one, you might end up with a stinger stuck in your foot. So the real trouble starts when you run into certain less friendly species, like Africanized honeybees. With those guys, things can go downhill fast. Once in Texas, a 62-year-old farmer named Larry Goodwin was driving his tractor when he accidentally disturbed a hive of Africanized honeybees. Within minutes, an estimated 40,000 bees swarmed him and started stinging. Sadly, he didn't survive. And that's not an isolated incident. Africanized honeybees are known for showing no mercy to their victims. Just disturbing their hive can quickly turn into a life-threatening situation. That's because you're dealing with insects programmed to protect their home with ruthless efficiency. When they sting you, they're not just causing pain, they're marking you. Each sting releases a special pheromone, which is basically their way of yelling to the rest of the swarm, "Hey, here's the target." Fun fact: that alarm pheromone smells kind of like bananas, and once it's on you, it sticks to your skin, your clothes, and surfaces nearby. Africanized honeybees are especially skilled at picking up this scent. Studies show they respond twice as quickly to alarm pheromones compared to other species, and they're about 30 times faster when chasing a moving target. So all this means that if you disturb Africanized honeybees, trust me, they'll hunt you down and make your life a living nightmare. But you can escape if you don't make certain mistakes. And jumping into water is probably the dumbest thing you can do. There are a few reasons for that. The first reason is pretty obvious. Once you're in the water, your ability to quickly escape or maneuver is severely limited. On land, you can run fast or even get inside a house, shutting doors and windows behind you. But in the water, your options sink. Sure, you can swim fast, but if you're in a small lake or a pool, there's nowhere to go. You're basically trapped, and swimming around in circles definitely won't help your case. The second reason is that certain bee species can actually swim, or more accurately, they can surf. These bees flap their wings to create tiny ripples, allowing them to glide along the surface. Okay, they're not exactly the Michael Phelps of the insect world, but the point is, hitting water doesn't necessarily mean game over for them. They'll just calmly surf back to the edge, dry off, and fly away like nothing ever happened. In fact, some bees can actually survive underwater for up to a week. So yeah, they're not as afraid of a lake or a pool as you might think. And the third reason is that bees are patient, extremely patient. They have all the time in the world to wait if it means they'll get the chance to attack you again. Remember that alarm pheromone I mentioned earlier, the one that gives away your exact location? Well, it doesn't fade away quickly. It can last for hours, even up to a day or more. This means bees might hover right above the water, calmly waiting for you to resurface. And when you finally come up for air, because eventually you'll have to, they'll strike again. And this time, the stings focus around your face, your nose, your mouth, your eyes. And if you're really unlucky and accidentally inhale one of those guys, that's when things get extremely serious. A sting inside your throat or airway can cause it to swell shut, completely blocking your ability to breathe. And that's not good. Now, it doesn't help that your body is now working twice as hard. You are desperately holding your breath underwater. You're panicking. Your clothes are soaked and heavy, dragging you down. Suddenly, you are no longer just trying to escape bees. You're also fighting not to drown. So no, jumping into water won't save you. It just adds another layer of danger. But water isn't the only bad move. There are other terrible ways you could react during a bee attack. Mistake number 1. Fighting back. Don't do it. You'll just waste precious time. Bees have numbers on their side, plus the gift of flight. The more you flail your arms, the angrier they will get, and trust me, you don't want that. Mistake number 2. Covering your face. Sure, bees often aim for your eyes, nose, and mouth, and maybe our first instinct is to protect that. But if you block your vision, you'll have a tough time spotting an escape route. Mistake number 3. Playing statue. Protecting yourself by standing still might work for certain animals, like a grizzly bear. But with bees, it's a terrible idea. And it all comes back to that pheromone I mentioned earlier. If you just stand there, a bee might sting you. And remember, all it takes is one sting to unleash that pheromone alert. Suddenly, you're the prime target for every bee nearby. So, how to protect yourself? Obviously, the best way to avoid an attack is to stay away from bees entirely. Especially those extremely territorial species. They are incredibly sensitive. Even minor disturbances, like the vibration from a lawnmower or a kid tossing a small pebble at their hive, can instantly trigger their defensive mode. But if it's already too late, run. Running should always be your absolute number 1 strategy. Just drop whatever you're carrying and get the heck away from them. Running is your best bet because it creates distance between you and the bees. These insects can fly around 12 to 15 miles per hour, but most humans can outrun them. Africanized honeybees in particular are known for chasing people for about a quarter of a mile. So if you can cover at least that distance, you will probably be safe. Long story short, too late for that. But still, if you ever find yourself in this dangerous situation, remember your first move: run, and run fast. This way you can get to a safe place, like a house or car, where you can shield yourself from the angry swarm. And remember to close all the windows behind you. But if you get stuck multiple times, make sure you seek medical attention, especially if you're allergic or start noticing any signs of an allergic reaction. Now, it is a good idea to share this video with your friends and family. That way, they'll also know how to protect themselves from these vengeful insects. So, there's this spooky feeding habit that caterpillars in Hawaii have been showing off. These inchworms, called geometrid larvae, are going against the norm and skipping the whole eating leaves thing. Instead, they hang out on leaves and stems, waiting for insects to come by so they can quickly snatch them up with their spiny legs. Ow! Scientists have found a bunch of these little bug hunters in Hawaii's forests and have been raising them in the lab. Turns out they belong to a group of caterpillars called Eupithecia, which normally chow down on plant stuff like flowers and leaves. But in Hawaii, around 6 of these Eupithecia species have decided to go carnivorous, opting for a diet of insect snacks instead. Maybe all that protein-rich flower pollen they've been eating has helped them unlock their inner predator. Due to the lack of predator from the mainland, these grappling inchworms have been able to thrive in Hawaii's ecosystem, unlike other invasive species causing trouble for native plants and animals. These flesh-eating caterpillars in Hawaii have evolved to occupy the ecological niche typically filled by insects like praying mantises in other regions. They're known for their quick attacks, taking only about 0.1 second to strike and devour their live prey. Hopefully, they don't get any bigger and hungrier. Rattlesnakes use their iconic rattle to warn predators like coyotes and bison to stay away or risk getting bitten. This rattling behavior evolved from ancestral tail shaking as a form of aposematic signaling. Rather than using the rattle to attract mates, the sound serves as a warning signal of the danger posed by the snake's venomous fangs. Hey, thanks for the warning. The rattling noise is created by loosely attached hollow segments of dead skin at the end of the snake's tail that click together. Recent research has shown that rattlesnakes adjust the speed of their rattling based on the proximity of a predator, creating a clever auditory illusion to deter potential threats. This sophisticated use of sound helps rattlesnakes defend themselves despite their own inability to hear the rattle. Now, scallops have a unique appearance, resembling horror movie clams with tendrils and eyes inside their mouths, despite, being delicious. Scientists have discovered that these eyes, which look like berries, could be compared to advanced telescopes. They're like tiled mirrors, capable of creating complex images similar to those formed by modern observatory telescopes. Interestingly, scallops do not have a brain, yet their eyes can form blurry images of objects. Unlike other mollusks, such as mussels, scallops have a unique eye structure similar to insects. This may explain why scallops are among the few bivalves that can swim. The numerous eyes on a scallop may help in creating a 3D view of its surroundings, with some eyes having better vision than others. These unique eyes could potentially influence the design of future telescopes, inspiring the creation of compact, wide-field imaging devices. So, the next time you enjoy a scallop dish, remember that these creatures have up to 200 tiny telescopes looking back at you. What is the purpose of hollow bones in birds? Well, birds possess unique skeletal adaptations crucial for being able to fly. One of these is hollow bones. Also known as pneumocized bones, they contain air spaces that aid in oxygen intake during flight. Air sacs are connected to these hollow areas within a bird's bones, allowing their lungs to extend throughout their skeletal structure. This intricate system helps birds absorb oxygen while breathing in and out, ultimately increasing oxygen levels in their blood and providing them with the necessary energy for flying. So, contrary to popular belief, hollow bones do not necessarily make a bird lighter. Studies show that bird bones are actually heavier compared to those animals of a similar size. In fact, the skeleton of a 2-ounce bird is denser and heavier than that of a 2-ounce mouse. This increased density results in stiffer and stronger thin hollow bones that are less likely to break. Sometimes legs are a lie. Tell me more. In a recent study, researchers delved into how caterpillars grow their signature chubby legs. They actually serve an important purpose. Caterpillars need to eat a lot to grow quickly, so having chubby legs help them move around leaves and stems efficiently. Interestingly, these chubby legs aren't actually legs at all. They're called prolegs, short nubs that help caterpillars move. The caterpillar's real legs, which turn into its adult legs as a moth or a butterfly, are near its head and are not used for walking. Even if a caterpillar loses its real legs, it can still move using its fake ones. This raises the question of what makes a leg a leg. Is it about its structure or its function? Caterpillars' unique legs are just one example of the fascinating adaptations seen in arthropods. These temporary legs help caterpillars feed and move before they transform into their final form. This fleeting glimpse into the caterpillar's world reminds us of the transitory nature of life and encourages us to appreciate these special legs while they last. These bearded dragons are cool lizards from Australia that hang out in deserts, savannas, scrublands, and subtropical forests. They're known for being real chill pets thanks to their friendly vibes, constant smile, and laid-back attitude. People love keeping them as pets, calling them beardies because of the spiky stuff on their necks. There are 8 kinds of bearded dragons, with lots of different colors and patterns developed in captivity. Even though they're doing well in their Australian homes, some of these dragons have ended up in other parts of the world through sneaky means. Though they mostly stick to the ground in the wild, they can sure climb trees when they need to show off or escape from something real spooky. Bearded dragons are now all over the world except Hawaii because they're not allowed there. Fun fact, these dragons can regrow teeth just like sharks and geckos. Some bearded dragons have been seen slurping up rainwater when it's super hot and dry outside. Bearded dragons have some quirky sleeping habits, snoozing in weird positions even when they're in their comfy tanks. They can literally stand while sleeping. They can also run pretty fast as humans. Still, they prefer taking it easy most of the time. When they do need to make a dash, they can stand up on 2 legs and zoom like a human. Mother Nature does not always adhere to strict definitions of gender. Some species have the ability to develop and maintain both male and female reproductive organs simultaneously. That's a trick. Others have the capability to switch from one gender to another, depending on various factors such as environmental conditions. These changes can provide reproductive flexibility, or may be triggered by external factors such as rising global temperatures. Clownfish are an example of sequential hermaphrodites, born as one gender but able to transition to the opposite gender if needed. In the case of clownfish, this transformation occurs from male to female, a process known as protantry. In a group of clownfish, only 2 members are fully mature, a large male and an even larger female. If something happens to the female, the male will transform into a female and select the next biggest male in the group as the new partner. Isn't that convenient? Hawkfish are another example of a species that can change gender based on specific conditions. They start off as females and can transition to males, a process known as protogeny. Unlike other sequential hermaphrodites, hawkfish have the ability to switch back and forth between male and female, depending on circumstances within the group. Banana slugs, for example, are simultaneous hermaphrodites, able to use both male and female reproductive organs at the same time. While they can self-fertilize, most banana slugs prefer to mate with another slug. Also, research has shown that some frog species are capable of changing gender, with individuals developing fully functional reproductive organs of the opposite gender. This change, observed in both laboratory and wild studies, may be a natural occurrence in frog populations, rather than solely a response to environmental changes. So now you know.
Breaking news. An unknown creature vaguely resembling a human has been found near the edge of the local forest. It was first reported by mushroom pickers. They heard a strange howl, unlike the voice of any known animal. Then they saw a large round thing coming towards them from the thicket. The pickers left that place and called the police immediately. Then the thing came out of the forest and headed towards the town. People from nearby dwellings were evacuated. The area was cordoned off by police and journalists. We're reporting live from a helicopter. You can see this creature walking along the road and howling. It has big red arms, legs, and head, but we can't discern its facial features. It moves very slowly and makes unsettling noises. Scientists hypothesize this is an unknown species of animal that has been hidden from civilization in the forests. But what made this creature move out of its habitat? And why now? Stay tuned and wait a minute. We see a young woman running towards the thing. She waves her hand and says something.
Well, you pause the video and do a facepalm in exasperation. How did they come up with calling you a thing? You still shiver when remembering that day. But you should say it was even fun. You're the only person in the world who survived such a misadventure. A person who survived the sting of 100 giant hornets. You lean back and relive those memories. You make a living by catching scary insects and letting them bite you. People on the internet love to watch it, and you get a lot of money for such videos. But the main reason you do this is that you don't feel pain. You were born with an unusual feature. Your nerve cells stop responding to any external stimuli that may cause discomfort. You feel touch, heat, cold, and tickling, but anything that hurts is ignored by your brain. So, now you're in a Japanese forest. It's home to the Asian giant hornets. Recently, hornets have been discovered in America, and this news became a sensation. It's difficult to find them there, and the authorities are fighting the spread of those insects. So you decide to go to their natural habitat. These hornets have made quite a bit of noise, and there's a reason. Asian giant hornets feed on bees and so greatly reduce their population. If the bees disappear, environmental disaster will start all over the world. But this is not the only reason why these hornets are so bad. One hornet is about the size of an adult's thumb, almost 3 times the size of a normal bee. They have a sting that can pierce the protective clothing of beekeepers. Those who have been stung compare it to a red-hot needle. You turn on your action camera, attach it to a belt across your chest, and start the online broadcast. You walk through the forest and hear a loud buzzing hum. You seem to be close. It's the sound of the nest. You don't get too close because hornets can't stand when something threatens their home. They start being agitated. One hornet can sting 10 times. Insect nests have been found underground, in rotting wood, and even on buildings. If such a nest appears in a city center, the hornets will bite everyone who passes by. You can see the nest in the distance. It hangs on a broken old tree. Hornets are flying around, and one of them notices you. It's getting closer. The hornet starts flying back and forth in front of you, buzzing angrily. It warns you not to approach. It looks pretty threatening, so you take a step back. To catch a hornet, you put a drop of grape jam on your hand. The insect lands in your palm. With your other hand, you try to catch it. The hornet notices the movement and attacks. It plunges the sting into your skin and injects venom, which contains several unpleasant substances. Once it enters the bloodstream, it dilates the vessels around the bite. Your skin turns red. Your body fights the foreign substance and sends out immune cells. But the venom destroys these cells, causing your skin to swell. The effects of the sting can last up to 2 days. Also, the venom contains a substance that is toxic to the kidneys. Fortunately, you don't feel anything, and you've managed to record how the insect bites you. A red dot appears in the center of your palm. It's a little swollen, that's all. You're about to leave this place, but hear the buzzing around the nest getting louder. To get food, hornets fly far away from their nests. When they find a beehive, they label it with a special pheromone that attracts other hornets. It's like a beacon that hornets put on their prey. When you fed the hornet grape jam, it put such a tracker on you too. And now, an army of hornets is heading straight for you. They sting you several times. You decide to run as far as possible. Hornets attack you from all sides. After about 20 stings, you lose count. You fight off the hornets with your hands and notice that your palms are so swollen that they resemble huge gloves. Your body is getting swollen because of a huge number of bites. It becomes difficult for you to see what is happening around you, as your eyelids are also becoming swollen. You feel nothing but slight discomfort though. Hornet's venom destroys immune cells throughout your body. You increase in size. Clothes are torn in some places. The belt from the action camera presses into your chest. It becomes difficult for you to move because your muscles don't obey. Soon, you start having trouble breathing. Your lips and cheeks are also swollen, and you can't open your mouth very wide. The face resembles several small balloons connected to each other, and your eyes, mouth, and nostrils are hidden somewhere behind these balloons. You manage to notice a few people walking through the forest. You want to shout for help, but instead you make a weird gurgling sound. People see you and run away in terror. You run after and ask them to stop. The people are screaming in fear. Your legs are so thick that they hit each other hard when you run. You're trying to run faster, stumbling, falling. A bear passes by. This fearsome predator notices you but stays still. You don't know if it's afraid of you or is just aware of what a hornet's bite is. Even the bear's thick skin is unable to stop their stings. No one in the forest dares to approach their nest, preferring to stay away from it. Your roar spreads throughout the forest. Birds fly away from the trees. With your huge hands, you try to reach into your pocket to get the bottle of jam, but you can't. The fingers are too big. Then you just rip the pocket. The bottle falls to the ground and shatters. Hornets lose interest in you and pounce on the tree. You run out of the forest and find yourself on a road. Cars honk and swerve around you. No choice left. You go along the road on foot and soon approach a small town. Then a helicopter appears in the sky. You're surrounded by police cars. The harder you try to tell them what's going on, the worse the sound you make. You can hardly see or hear what the police are telling you. It seems that no one will help you. You fall to your knees. At this point, a girl runs out and shouts to everyone that you're a human, a famous blogger. All this time you're broadcasting online, and one of your fans, this lady, was nearby. You mentally thank the girl and black out. You wake up in a hospital, still a little swollen. This time you can talk and even smile. The doctors say you'll recover completely in a few days, but the media will remember you for many years. So, here you are, sitting at home, almost a year after your adventure, watching a recording of a TV news report. That video brought you a lot of fame and money. You want to repeat the success. This time, you don't want to deal with insects. You're going to bother a snake's nest.
You think your bedroom is empty, but there's something hidden inside. Secretly, a bed bug is resting. While inactive during the day, their keen instincts identify the moment you've gone to bed. As you breathe deeply, you emit large amounts of carbon dioxide. This lures the bed bugs out like a dinner bell. This insect holds no other purpose than contaminating your home. Without predators and with an uncontested food supply in your bed, it leads a very peaceful life. They're incredibly hardy, able to live within any area that humans journey to. They're capable of hitchhiking on human luggage and riding along to public places like theaters, hospitals, schools, and hotels. The length of the journey doesn't bother them, as they can survive a whole year without food. Don't bother attempting to catch them. As small as they are at 1/4 inch, they're also very fast and easily find new places to hide. The only method is through pesticides. But as a testament to their resistance, pest controllers must constantly modify the strength of their substance. Bedbugs produce their own detoxifying enzymes which protect them. And with each generation, they become even more resilient. A study in 2008 compared bedbugs of that time to a generation from 30 years earlier. The older generation required only 0.3 nanograms of substance to remove them. However, the newer group required up to 10,000. More important is to remove their eggs. A female bug lays them every single night, and throughout their lifetime of 6 months, they can lay up to 500. You walk around the kitchen and you notice a couple of ants walking around. It's spring, and at this time of year, they prefer protein-based foods. Later in summer, their diet will involve sweeter and oily meals. These couple of ants are only scouts, trying to locate new sources of food. The smell of a dirty kitchen and a full bin have attracted them here. Once they've found their objective, they will mark their journey with a pheromone leading to their nest, informing the entire colony of the buffet they located. The nest of the colony could be as small as a dinner plate with 1,000 ants, or as large as 2 meters with up to 100,000 inhabitants. There are also some cases of super colonies that combine more than one nest. The largest one found covers over 3 countries, Italy, France, and Spain. Over 3,700 miles, it's estimated that this super colony has millions of nests with billions of ants. So, understanding the risk of a lot of ants entering your home, you can easily remove the scouts' tracks by mixing 1 part vinegar and 3 parts water into a spray bottle. Then spray it over the floor. The vinegar removes the scented trail. The risk isn't just sharing your home with thousands of new housemates. With a steady food source available, they might make a nest within the walls and floors. They will weaken your foundations, making it even harder to remove the ants. Another pest that has a taste for the sweeter delicacies within the trash bin is the cockroach. They can only survive a week without water, so you'll find them in humid areas, mainly in basements. But they are capable of living up to a month without food, resourcefully eating to avoid the risk of being caught in the act. They gained these evolutionary traits over 280 million years ago. Clearly, they've been a nuisance for a long time. You see one in your kitchen, it quickly evades capture, running up to 3 miles per hour. You chase it down into your basement and it quickly hides away, somewhere in the cracks of the wall. In here, the roach mother will lay up to 50 eggs, and when they hatch, the young ones are impossible to find, as they're the size of a speck of dust. But with only 36 days until they grow into an adult, You need to get rid of them as soon as possible. It's another resilient bug that resists pesticides. It's easier to deter them completely by keeping the kitchen clean and using citrus-based products. Although they smell great, the roaches can't stand them. But if you already have an infestation on your hands, chop up some onions and sprinkle them with baking soda. As the roaches feed on the onion, they also unknowingly ingest the soda. It reacts with the stomach's liquid and expands, causing it to burst. You're unpacking a box and surprised to see some silverfish inside of it. It's a popular place for them, providing shelter and a comfortable way to travel. Paper, card, a high starch and sugar content, providing them with an endless food source. They are incredibly elusive and can lay dormant for long periods, so it only appears that you don't have any in your home. They're harmless to humans but can damage clothing and contaminate food. You'll want to find a way to remove them as they lay up to 3 eggs per day and can live for 8 years. And as their numbers grow, predatory bugs will soon follow. Centipedes are attracted to houses with silverfish. As the centipede quickly follows the migration of silverfish, it also prefers the same humid environment of your basement. Centipedes are prone to dehydration, partly due to their impressive speed of 1.3 feet per second. But as they run out of silverfish to eat, they rudely refuse to leave. There is a positive side to this, as they then go on to remove other annoying pests, including roaches, moths, dangerous spiders, and even bed bugs. While also trying to be as respectful as possible in your home, carefully grooming their 15 pairs of legs after each meal. But if you find their creepy appearance too much, removing the buffet of other pests will influence them to move on. Time is a great natural deterrent for both the centipede and its prey. Planting it around your home will provide an invisible force field. Slightly pinching the leaves will release the chemical within. But although bugs in your home are mostly pests, some can actually be helpful. If you're in Australia, it's common to find a huntsman spider inside your home. These guys are quite large, and it may appear scary, but they're here to help, trust me. They're capable of living for 2.5 years. Some people even consider them to be a pet. Peacefully sleeping during the day, high on your wall in clear view, letting you know they're there for you, while out of reach causing you no harm. And as you go to bed at night, they provide their part of the rent. They get to work removing all the pesky bugs in your house. As the huntsman moves towards your basement, it slowly tracks its unsuspecting prey, hiding within the shadows of your basement. The huntsman has decided that on today's menu is the cockroach, one of its favorites. The roach awakes once it's clear, knowing you've gone to bed. Then it struts towards the stairs full of confidence, hoping to find some of that sweet trash juice. But along its path, the huntsman waits. It's an ambush. The roach walks right into it, and the huntsman lunges out from its hiding spot. The roach is spooked and tries to get away. But the huntsman is one of the fastest spiders in the world, and within moments it shows the meaning behind the name huntsman. The huntsman is incredibly passive towards people and just loves to be in your house. If you try to remove them, they will flee and hide. They're only aggressive if you force them into a corner. All they want to do is be part of the family and be your exterminator, free of charge. If you're unlucky and don't have one of these great housemates, you may want to introduce one from the wild. But before going out and catching one, keep in mind there are 100 different species within Australia. They vary in size and behavior, and some are a bit more social than others. The social huntsman prefers to live within communities of up to 150, an extended family that hunts together and shares their food. So be cautious about which ones you decide to bring into your home.
Why wouldn't you want to wade into this cool pond on a piping hot summer day? You dip into the refreshing water and enjoy the breeze. Everything's perfect. Until a dark shadow drifts by under the surface. You think it must be a leaf based on its size, so you don't pay it any mind. Until it bites you, right on your big toe. After running out of the water, you realize you've been the subject of a giant water bug strike. You've had the unfortunate chance to meet a toe biter, or sometimes called an alligator tick. You'll survive this monster's bite, but it will be unpleasant, because giant water bugs are found worldwide in freshwater habitats. Their bites are more common than any of us would like. Be on the lookout next time. Here's what you need to know to spot them. The giant water bug grows to be more than 4 inches long. According to Guinness World Records, that makes it the largest aquatic insect on Earth. A nip from one of them is said to be some of the most painful injuries a human can suffer from bugs. Although they can be found around the world, they're especially common in North America. They blend into the landscape. Their dark brown body mimics the leaves of the wetlands. No wonder you didn't spot it. They're predatory by nature, usually after small fish, tadpoles, and other insects. But they've also been known to take down bigger prey, like snakes and even turtles. Good thing you're much bigger than a turtle. In some species, female toe biters lay their eggs on the male's back. He then carries them wherever he goes. As sweet as that sounds, the sight of a male toe biter carrying his eggs is unfortunately super unpleasant and will send shivers down your spine. And what's worse, even though they're called water bugs, they can fly. So don't just watch out below, because they can come from the sky. As you catch your breath on the shore, something lands on your shoulder. Quick, swat it away! It's a botfly! Botflies are vicious tiny insects that lay their eggs in mosquitoes, injecting those eggs into humans. Your warm body temperature creates the perfect incubation environment. When they hatch, they start their lives with the grueling task of eating their way out. Lovely. You're most likely to find them in Central and South America, but it's not implausible for you to have an unlikely encounter with these small creatures in Florida as well. The name hammerhead worm calls to mind nothing good. It sounds like an impossible cross between a shark and an earthworm. Looking at one, that's not far off. Multiple sightings of this strange creature were reported across Georgia. They live up to their name, with a distinct crescent moon-shaped head. Well, what appears to be their head, their mouth is halfway down their bodies. Their appearance is off-putting for a reason. These babies are poisonous. They produce tetrodotoxin, the same as pufferfish. Scientists aren't yet sure how it uses the toxin, but the best bet is that it's a tool to catch its prey, other worms. We also don't know how much of it would hurt a human, but experts say to stay away no matter what. Especially don't harm it, because it has the spectacular ability to reform itself out of cut sections of its body, like the myth of the Hydra. Side note, someone with a great sense of humor nicknamed these grubs lanchovies, which sound much less scary than hammerhead worm. The giant silkworm caterpillar looks as intimidating as it should. Its potent venom is no joke. The larvae are sheathed in tiny spear-like bristles, which release a highly poisonous anticoagulant toxin. So getting pricked by one of these isn't ideal, but they make it even worse by gathering in bunches. So it's common to accidentally brush up against multiple caterpillars at the same time. Most people who are stung don't feel it. Oh, that's good, right? Well, no. It means they have no idea what's going on when symptoms appear. Plus, there's no visible mark left where they've been stung. One of the strangest things about this caterpillar is that it's super tiny compared to the damage it can cause, usually around 2 inches. They're commonly found in the rainforests of South America, including in Uruguay, Argentina, and Brazil. But plot twist, this creepy crawly doesn't just come in one form. The caterpillar is only in the first stage of its life. Yeah, that's what it looked like as a baby. Once it reaches adulthood, it takes on an entirely different shape as the giant silkworm moth. But don't be fooled into thinking it's harmless now because it's lost its vicious spikes. It's still venomous, and now it can fly. You can take comfort in knowing that it only lives for a few weeks in this form though, because once it metamorphoses, it no longer has a mouth to eat with. The Australian funnel web spider toxin can take out an adult human in about 15 minutes. That's why it's widely considered the world's most dangerous spider. While all funnel web spiders are no darlings, this specific species takes the cake. They're relatively large and aggressive, with rear-facing fangs capable of piercing through your fingernails. The males often wander into human-populated areas in search of mates and are much more likely to cause harm. They make their burrows in cool, sheltered areas, such as under rocks and inside rotting logs. Worst of all, they're commonly found in shrubs and rock groups in suburban districts. If you're not from Australia, you can feel relief since they're exclusively native there. If you are from Australia, pay close attention to your surroundings, and if you see one of these, stay far, far away. A word of good news, an anti-venom was developed in 1981. Still, it's best to steer clear. Down on the bottom of the ocean in tropical areas, you might spot a beautifully patterned shell, like this one. They come in all colors and sizes, and look like tiny pottery vases made by little underwater potters. If you're like me, your instinct might be to reach out and pick it up and take it home as a souvenir. That's the last thing you ever want to do. This isn't just any old shell. It's the home of a cone snail. If that name doesn't strike fear into your heart yet, it will soon. Like most snails, the cone snail is slow, but it makes up for it with calculated moments of dangerous swiftness. They're predatory, seeking out other snails, fish, and marine worms. They sense potential food nearby using their nose and deploy a sharp needle-like proboscis to spear their prey. The harpoon-like beak is strong enough to penetrate fabric, even reinforced diving gloves. If you're a human, and I sure hope you are, you're not the cone snail's ideal meal. That doesn't stop it from stinging people that get too close. If it does sting you, you probably won't feel it because the venom that is injected in that instant is laced with a natural pain reliever. The lack of pain is actually what makes this snail so dangerous. Without knowing what's hit you, you may not register the sting symptoms until it's too late. So, if you see a pretty shell, stay safe by leaving it be. This minuscule bombardier beetle has a unique talent. When threatened, it can shoot boiling hot poisonous acid from its backside. It uses the stinky chemical spray to ward off predators and lash out against other insects. And it works well. Sometimes it even saves their lives after they've been swallowed. Frogs will often spit them back up once they taste their less than pleasant flavor. You might find one in many different ecosystems, from deserts to grasslands to thick forests. They're so versatile that they're found on every continent, except Antarctica. You've probably never noticed one before, because they're so tiny, only about the size of a fingernail. Incredibly, a potent spray can come from such a little bug. It can be because of an elaborate internal structure of chambers and reservoirs that combine two chemical compounds, hydroquinone and hydrogen peroxide. They're stored separately in reservoirs inside the beetle's abdomen. They pass through valves and meet in a central chamber to mix with an enzyme that kickstarts the reaction. Gases created in the reaction rapidly expand and produce massive amounts of heat. Whatever you do, you don't want to get on these little guys' wrong side. You might think that zombies only exist in the movies, but the threat could be much more real if you're a cicada. A fungus called Massospora has a unique goal that few other mushrooms share. It hitches a ride inside the bodies of the singing cicadas, overtaking the bugs' minds and turning them into real-life zombies. Affected cicadas act very unnaturally, with their only goal being to spread more of the fungus to other cicadas. The scariest part is that the insects stay fully functional the entire time, showing no sign that they've been taken over, besides their strange behavior, until it's too late. While they may not be a threat to humans, there's still something very unsettling about knowing that the buzzing bugs in the trees might be the creatures of scary movies.
Flies and other bugs have developed vision, which helps them to react quickly to danger and see in all directions at once. They can easily notice a huge object approaching them and quickly fly away. But when they're flying at a high speed, their vision loses focus and the image of the world becomes blurred. They can't understand that there's a transparent glass in front of them or a human, so they crash into them. Many beetles are guided by light and temperature. They're flying in the fresh air and suddenly notice the light and feel the heat from the window. A bug heads towards the light and doesn't notice the window. Their vision is not developed enough to distinguish a thin layer of glass in their way. They are also attracted by the smells coming from the house. Most insects don't have sharp vision. A bug flies quickly along the road towards a fast-moving vehicle. The insect notices it too late and simply doesn't have time to react and fly away. The fly's vision is not so bad. When trying to get rid of a fly, you hit it with a newspaper, but the insect easily gets away. Its speed is not so fast for its size, but you're still too slow for it. The tiny fly's brain reacts to what it sees several times faster. The fly perceives 1 second 5 to 6 times slower than a human. Imagine a scuba diver running underwater. If you look at them from the surface, they will seem slow to you. That's how a fly sees you from the outside. Throw an ordinary balloon in the air and watch it fall to the ground. For a fly, your hitting hand is not any faster than this balloon. These insects also have unique eyes. They are divided into thousands of receptors and lenses that simultaneously capture light. People use small muscles and turn their eyes to see their surroundings. Flies don't have such muscles. They see in all directions at once. With their 360-degree vision, no matter from which side you attack the fly, it will never be surprised. Flies also have amazing wings, allowing them to change direction during the flight. It can stop, turn around, move in a new direction, and dodge any obstacles in a split second. But the most incredible thing about flies is the ability to calculate their flight strategy in advance. You swing a rolled-up newspaper at a fly. At this moment, the insect's brain calculates where your hand is going to land. The fly's body immediately takes the right position to perform the maneuver. It knows where you're going to hit before you hit. But you have a small chance to swat a fly. Play ahead of the curve. A fly is sitting on your desk. You need to aim at it, but hit a little further, to the place where the fly could possibly move. Anyway, it's difficult to predict its route. Despite your slowness, you're still a big danger to a fly, but for some reason, it's not afraid of you. The fly is moving around your body and doesn't leave you alone. It's because your body is a feast for the fly. It doesn't even need to bite you to get food. Everything is on the surface. Your skin secretes sweat, proteins, carbohydrates, salts, sugar, and other chemicals the fly collects with its feeding tube. Its main obstacle on the way to food is a slow giant, you. And you're not a serious reason to stay hungry. Have you noticed hundreds of moths and night butterflies flying around a lantern or an ordinary lamp? This happens because of their evolution. These insects fly only at night to avoid meeting with predators. For millions of years, they were flying through the night sky guided by the moonlight. But they weren't flying straight to the moon. They had to see the moon at a certain angle. This helped them not to get lost or fall into traps. They know there were fewer dangers where the moon was shining, as there would be an open space there. But then, people created electricity. Millions of new moons appeared from windows of our houses to street lamps. A moth flies to the lamp at a certain angle, but unlike the real moon, the lamp is getting closer and closer to the moth. There's more and more light, and the moth is lost in space. It begins to fly in a spiral towards the lamp and gets so close that the light blinds the moth from all sides. It's disoriented and can't understand what's happening. The light that shows the direction to the moth is everywhere, so the insects can't fly away. It just doesn't know where to go. Crane flies are huge insects with long legs. They live near water and moist places with large vegetation. They seem quite scary because they look like huge mosquitoes. But crane flies are some of the most gentle and harmless insects on the planet. Some species feed on nectar from plants. Some crane flies don't have a mouth and don't eat anything at all. They live a short life and use fat reserves they accumulated when they were larvae. These fragile creatures appear after winter. Crane flies play an important role in maintaining the environment. They are food for frogs, fish, birds, spiders, and bigger insects. So don't rush to slam it if you see it. It won't harm you. Most insects can be annoying, and some, like house centipedes, look pretty scary too. These long-bodied creatures with 15 legs can live in your bathroom or even in your bedroom. Most people immediately want to strike it, but you shouldn't do this. A centipede is a useful predator for your home. It catches small insect pests, controls the population of cockroaches, midges, flies, termites, and other beetles. The centipede likes to hang out around food. If you crush it, a lot of small insects will crawl out of your house. It's better to call special services to etch out all unwanted bugs and cockroaches. Once there's no food for it in your house, the centipede will leave it. Centipedes are solitary predators. They are not carriers of diseases. They don't chew on your furniture or clothes. They don't build nests. All they want is to catch prey. The same goes for spiders. They catch bedbugs, mosquitoes, flies, and other small insects. So, spiders and centipedes are the little guardians of your home. Giant tropical centipedes are totally different. These huge creatures are poisonous and can even bite a human. They also have a strong protective shell, which is difficult to destroy. They usually live in tropical forests and jungles, but sometimes they can crawl into houses. There's a fast insect hiding in the walls of your rooms or behind the stove in your kitchen. Meet American cockroach. It's almost impossible to catch it as it can move at the speed of 5 feet per second, thanks to its 6 legs. Each leg has 3 knees. Their limbs are covered with small hairs that feel any change in vibrations in space. They work as antennae. When you open the kitchen door, they immediately catch a whiff of air and quickly run away. You can't catch them, but house centipedes can. The fastest land animal in the world relative to its size is as large as a sesame seed. It's a mite found in Southern California. It runs 322 lengths of its body in a second. For comparison, the fastest mammal is a cheetah. It can run 16 lengths of its body. The fastest athlete runs 6 lengths of their body. If you increase the mite to the size of a human, it would be able to move at a speed of 1,300 miles per hour, almost 2 times faster than the speed of sound. It can change its direction so quickly, you can also call it the most elusive creature on the planet. You won't even see it if the bug runs past you.
You see their little cone-shaped dirt houses on the ground, like mini volcanoes scattered around your yard. Ants are usually harmless little bugs, paying you no attention, just going about their day working hard. But if you've just stepped near a group of Australian bulldog ants, I have one word for you: run! These terrifying insects get the name from those, hard to miss, those huge spiky jaws protruding from their mouth. That's what they use to latch on to whatever critter happens to be their unlucky lunch today. That meal can include beetles, caterpillars, flies, or even wasps, spiders, and frogs. These ants will go after anything that gets too close. They're ferocious and smart. They'll drive out their competitor, the flat huntsman spider, by filling its nest with twigs, leaves, and anything on hand. This drives the arachnid out, leaving more lunch for the ants. But back to those malicious mandibles. That's not the only thing you gotta look out for. They use those jaws to hold on to something, a meal, an enemy, your skin, while they inject a highly venomous stinger. This is no bee sting either. They can do it multiple times, and it's harmless to them. It's the sting you have to look out for, not the bite. Though the bite's not a pleasant feeling either. And if one senses danger, it'll release a chemical in the air to alert the others. If you accidentally get too close to their colony, the whole dang brigade will come out and chase you away. And to top it all off, they have excellent vision, they're fast, and they can jump. They're also pretty big for ants, about as long as a matchstick. Stay far away from this one. Now, don't just watch your feet for dangers crawling below. Look out! There's an Africanized bee coming right at you. This thing is a lab experiment gone terribly wrong. It all started in the 1950s. The goal? Make a bee that produces more honey. The method? Cross an African species of honeybee with a bunch of European ones. The result? A ferocious frankenbee, more aggressive and defensive than most types. Actually, at first, everything was fine. But one day, because of a laboratory mishap, more than 20 colonies of these monsters broke free. They spread throughout South America and up into the northern continent. They say these bees don't like it if someone gets closer than 15 feet, just half the length of a bus, to their home, and they all come out together to defend it. That's around 10,000 angry bees headed your way. They'll chase down an intruder over the length of 4 football fields. Hope you've had enough stamina to escape this bug. And then there are these nightmarish large bees. The Asian green hornet is the biggest, coming in at about the size of your thumb and 20 times more massive than your standard honeybee. These guys feed on honeybees, wasps, mantises, and even other hornets. They can reach speeds of 25 miles per hour in the pursuit of food or to drive an intrusive human away. Their stinger is long enough to puncture a beekeeping suit. And apparently there are cases of these hornets spraying their venom into an intruder's eyes. Well, we'll take a break from flying frights and head to the beach. But a peaceful shell-collecting trip can end in a nightmare if you accidentally pick up a cone snail. When hunting or defending themselves, these snails shoot a needle-like harpoon through the pointy end of the shell. Just a tiny drop of its venom is enough for 10 adults. Oh, and there's currently no anti-venom for this one. Now, the sea dweller with the strongest venom in the world is the box jellyfish. The creature is pretty large, about the length of your forearm, not including those long tentacles. Yet, people may not notice it because it's see-through. The jellyfish grabs onto its prey with all those toxic tentacles. They have enough venom for 60 grown people. Not many can brag of surviving a rendezvous with this jelly. Oh, the sea is no safer than your backyard, and while you're cleaning out the shed, watch out for the brown recluse spider. They're not nightmarishly big, not often growing larger than the size of a quarter. But that's the problem. You'll easily see a tarantula coming at you, which are harmless by the way. With a brown recluse, you won't see it till it's too late. The initial bite isn't very painful. Some people don't even know they've been bitten. But as soon as it sank its fangs in you, its venom starts to do its dirty but silent work. Within 3 to 8 hours, you get redness and swelling at the site. Then comes the burning, and it intensifies from there. The effects are usually done after 5 days, but they can continue for up to 3 months. Even familiar insects can be dangerous too. Like that fly buzzing around your kitchen? You know what journey he's probably had? Well, before flying to your place, it probably sat on the dumpster. Then it flew over to the public restroom, walked all over the floor, walls, and toilet seats. Maybe it stopped in a cow pasture, the zoo. It's been to all kinds of filthy places, and now it's walking all over that beautiful fruit bowl you have on display. And whatever microbes were in the stuff it was stomping around and putting its mouthparts on, they're now all over your food. The thing about bacteria, it makes people sick. So clean up and keep flies out. Now, take a closer look at that ladybug in your house. It could be an imposter. The Asian lady beetle is more yellow-orange than red like ladybugs. You can tell the difference for sure if it has an M-shaped stain on its head. If so, that's not a harmless ladybug. Asian lady beetles were brought to North America and Europe from Asia. The goal was to deal with parasitic aphids. But that plan backfired, sounds familiar, and the bug itself became a parasite. There were so many of them, they practically replaced the classic ladybug. And not only can they bite, they also produce a stinky yellow ooze that can stain your walls or any other surface they crawl on. The hag moth looks more like a spider than a caterpillar. All those arm-like tentacles coming out of its sides are covered in venomous hairs. One touch can leave you with a painful irritation. If you ever catch any fuzzy caterpillar crawling on you, don't remove it with your fingers. Grab a pair of tweezers. If one manages to sting you, gently put tape on the site and peel it off to get all the hairs out. Don't just use the same piece of tape twice. You could end up sticking a hair back into yourself. Wash the area with soap and water and use an anti-itch cream if you need. If you're in North America, watch out for the most venomous scorpion on the continent. Arizona bark scorpions travel in packs. So if you ever see one, know that its friends are hiding nearby. They have excellent night vision, so they can see you while you might not be able to see them. And what's really scary? They prefer to be upside down. So one could be hiding right under the table you're sitting at. But some terrors are nearly undetectable to the eye. They sit comfortably on the tips of grass and wait for their lunch to pass by. Oh, look, it's your leg! The monster grabs on and makes a human juice box out of you. Ticks might be small, but that's what makes them so scary. They can hide anywhere, your grass, bushes, on the ground, in the leaves. You hardly feel them crawling on you, and their bite goes undetected. Sometimes they can even make a person sick. Ew, yeah. That's what most cockroaches hear during any rendezvous with our species. Like flies, they've got their dirty little hands and feet all over your surfaces, and possibly even food. And yes, they can bite people, though it's rare. And they're found on every continent except Antarctica. Hey, looks like I'm moving there. So how's this sound? A creepy crawly hanging out right in your bed as you sleep soundly at night. Even worse, it's dining on you. Bedbugs are so infamous they need no introduction. But surprisingly, they're not considered dangerous to health. Though, who would want to be covered in small red bites everywhere? Also, don't assume these guys only hang out in dirty houses. They'll take any bed in any home if given the chance. Termites don't bite, they don't crawl in your bed, and they have no interest in what food you have in the cupboards. What they're munching on is your house. And they do it in secret. Most people don't even know they have a problem until it's too late. That's when wood structures start to lose their strength. Like bedbugs, they're tough to get rid of. And don't assume they're just in the walls. They can also be chowing down on the sofa. Yep, right there as you watch TV or take a nap. Sweet dreams. So, it's a hot summer day, you're outdoors enjoying the weather. You want to lie on the cool grass somewhere in the shade just to relax, but ew, looks like someone spat there, but it's actually a spittlebug's house. These guys sip a lot of watery sap from the plants, and when they process it, it forms a lot of bubbles, not less than 150 times their body mass daily. All these bubbles form a cocoon where young insects can grow safely. No bird or animal wants to eat this cocoon because it tastes bitter, as if you licked a Nintendo cartridge. Not so fast, cheetah. Apparently, Dracula ant is the world's fastest animal, and the vampires in the ant world. They'd definitely win any burger-eating contest, since they're able to snap their jaws 5,000 times faster than your eye can blink. To understand how fast the Dracula ant is, you gotta make a video of his jaws chomping at 480,000 frames per second. At this speed, you'll see the ant slowly moving its mandibles. They don't run, but their mouths are rapid, and they move those jaws so fast, they even bend while snapping together. Now, people can do that too, snapping our fingers so that they bend. The darkest animal out there is the Yosemite chicken. Not only these guys have black feathers, eyes, and claws, they also have black bones. The color is bluish-black, and it is deep. If you ever try those chicken wings, they'll look as if someone had marinated them in blackberry juice or squid ink. They say Marco Polo was the first to have discovered these odd or charming roosters. Back in 1298, the explorer wrote about a breed of chickens that were as black as cats and laid the best eggs. This freshwater fish has been around since the beginning of the 20th century and probably remembers good old times with black and white and even silent movies. One big-mouthed buffalo made it till 112 years old. Still, the world's oldest creatures live in the sea. There are deep-sea sponges that are 11,000 years old, and they're safe and sound. This fish has incredible gills, which lets it hold its breath for over 4 minutes. Meet the coffin fish, a weird-looking but tough animal. They're also famous as sea toads. They actually look much more like toads, not classic fish with fins and scales. They can also inflate because of the seawater they gulp, so they expand just like a balloon. In fact, this super ability lets this fish hold its breath for several minutes because they actually get the oxygen from the water they keep inside. But the absolute champion is the human. The world's champion can survive holding the breath for over 20 minutes. There are some animals that make their own clothes. Sponge crabs make a sort of hat from sponges to protect them from underwater bad guys. To figure out how the crabs decided on their outfit, researchers gave them some foam sponges that were different in sizes. The bigger the crab is, the bigger the sponge it chooses. They use various techniques to get this perfect shape, starting from cutting out a small hole for the head, and then they see if the size fits them. If they're good to go, They continue to cut and dig into that sponge until it becomes a perfect hat. Recently, researchers have spotted a moth that would drink birds' tears while they sleep. So far, there were only 3 registered cases of animals feeding on other animals' tears. These were some Amazon butterflies, solitary bees, and moths. Their regular diet mostly includes nectar, but it does lack essential salts that aren't that easy to find elsewhere. Not only do they drink birds' tears, they also drink turtles' tears, crocodiles' tears, and those of many mammals found in the Amazon jungle. Really? Crocodile tears? Some sea dwellers can emit red light. For example, the stoplight loosejaw fish uses it to catch dinner. Shrimps don't see the red light, so the loosejaw fish can spot any red shrimp emitting pulses of red light and catches it without scaring the dinner away. Mammals can glow too. A flying squirrel glows under UV light, emitting pink light. It happens because they're able to absorb light and emit it back in another wavelength. The platypus may not have the largest cheek pouches, but they're definitely the weirdest. They keep gravel inside those pouches to help mash the food they normally eat – worms, shellfish, snails. These guys are toothless, so gravel comes in handy when it comes to chewing the food. It works just like a blender. Ooh, makes you wonder what they use for the mouthwash, huh? Now, if humans had the same incredible cheeks just like chipmunks have, we'd be able to transport our groceries right in our mouths. In fact, chipmunks can transport something as large as themselves in their oversized mouth luggage sections. Hamsters have the same superpower too, and can even carry their young in the mouth in case of the need to run away. A baby carrot, which seems tiny for a human but significantly large for a hamster, can disappear without a trace in between those huge cheeks. The Mariana snailfish, which logically lives in the Mariana Trench, is relatively small. It's as large as 2 medium candy bars. Despite the size, they can easily withstand the pressure that equals 1,600 elephants standing on it. This fish has a unique body structure. For example, it has some gaps in the skull. If their skull was uniform and had no holes, it would never withstand the pressure in the depths of the Mariana Trench. Plus, their cartilage skeleton is soft and flexible. They also have no actual eyes, but they really don't need them since they live in complete darkness in the world's deepest trench. Hey, meet the Pinocchio frog. Not hard to guess, their nose can grow in size in the blink of an eye in various situations. Whenever they feel danger coming, it gets larger. When these frogs are calm and feel safe, it goes back to normal. It may also elongate when they want to attract mates, and probably when they croak a lot. Haha, just kidding. Do you enjoy it when it rains? You probably grab a cup of hot chocolate, cover yourself up with a blanket, and sit on the windowsill, looking at the drops dripping down the window. If you like it, you're definitely not a Myanmar snub-nosed monkey that's been recently discovered, guess where, in Myanmar. Their nostrils are so upturned and exposed to the outer world that they sneeze every time it rains. But if you were in a choir, you have something in common. Snub-nosed monkeys like singing together. Amazon pink river dolphins aren't born pink. Their young are always gray, but the older they get, the pinker they turn. It's like people having wrinkles when they age, and these guys simply get a different color. Hey, I'd like to get a little pink instead of those smile lines. You'd certainly love to be a termite because of their crazy sleep schedule. They actually never sleep, and the only thing they do is nibble on the wooden pegs they see around them. Well, if you're afraid of gaining weight because of a cellulose-rich diet, you could probably turn into a snail. They get a power nap for some hours and then can run without sleep for as long as 30 hours in a row. No fish can survive for any significant period of time without water, except this one, the African lungfish. When they feel something's wrong, they start secreting a mucus cocoon and go underground, give or take 9 inches under the soil. They have a built-in tube to breathe. Mountain stoneweeds, native to New Zealand, aren't afraid of drastic temperature changes. Their blood contains a special protein that doesn't let their blood crystallize in case of extreme temperatures. They tolerate any cold better than polar bears and even penguins, who live in the officially world's coldest place, Antarctica. Ring-tailed lemurs have one of the craziest ways of conflict resolution. They have stink fights. Taking into account the average number of lemurs in a group, about 20 or 30 animals, you'll see there's a lot of competition. Their scent glands are on their wrists and shoulders. Those on the wrists are harmless. The odor they produce is quite volatile. Those on the shoulders are nasty and produce brown, funky-smelling paste that would outlast any perfume. So back off. That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.